Chapter 1. Naming a child was simple for some people, but it was very difficult for others. The difficulty did not lie in the meaning of the name, but in the choice. What should our son be called? That is the problem. I think we can send out a batch of radios first to calm the tide of naming attacks. The child was 1 month old, and they had just treated him to a meal and received many gifts. Wang Wan fed the child milk, and Zhang Xiaobao provided a shoulder for Wang Wan to lean on, worrying by himself. The little guy who had not yet had a name was not at all obedient during the meal. Every time he swallowed 2 mouthfuls of milk, he would look up at the noisy man beside him, and the dissatisfaction in his eyes was obvious. Wang Wan hugged her chubby son and said in a low voice, "Lower your voice. It is impolite to disturb others when they are eating. If you really can't do it, why don't we wait until the half-year ceremony to decide on a name?" Half-year ceremony? Zhang Xiaobao repeated doubtfully, and then sighed helplessly. When other people's children were born, according to the local customs, some were 1 month old, and some were 1 month old. When his son was born, he had to celebrate 1 month old first. Some people actually suggested a 2nd month ceremony, a 3rd month ceremony, a 1st month ceremony, a 2nd week ceremony. Once a month, it would be lively, right? The problem was that you all wanted the atmosphere of a gathering, and his family could not go crazy with you all. Yes, a half-year ceremony. Li Longji gave a name, foster father gave a name, our grandfather gave a name, our father gave a name, and our father gave a name. There are also the ministers that we have a good relationship with, the scholars of the Jishin Academy, and the public naming contest that various newspapers have gathered. We can't disappoint them, so we will use all of them if we can. Wang Wan patted her son's head as she spoke. The little guy stopped talking and returned a big smile to his mother. Zhang Xiaobao frowned and thought for a while before saying, "Do you want me to give him an Arabic name? Use all of the names that everyone gave. That is my son, not theirs, so why are you so worried? Also, they said that our son lacks fire, so why don't we name him Huahua? What do you think?" "You are indeed the top scorer. Talented." Wang Wan rolled her eyes at Zhang Xiaobao. "Lily," Zhang Xiaobao came up with another nickname. "Oh, since when did my husband like the Book of Changes? It's called Mingming, but it's better than Ili and Yangyang, right? If we don't make a big deal out of it and call it Calamity, the entire Great Tang will probably go crazy. Mingming is better, and it's a combination of hardness and gentleness, with yin and yang complementing each other." "Okay, Mingming is Mingming. You will be a public figure in the future. You have to teach her well. Don't cause trouble for society all day long. We don't want to raise a playboy." Wang Wan finally agreed to the nickname. Zhang Xiaobao appeared to be very happy. "Did you see that? The top scorer's talent is not for nothing. Ming Ming, what a magical name. A public figure. This doesn't seem to need to wait for the future. Now is the time. I wonder what that large group of public figures are doing. I'll ask someone later." The public figure that Zhang Xiaobao mentioned was currently leading more than 500 students of the Imperial College. These 500 people were all good at studying. No matter what your identity was, who your father, grandfather, or grandmother was, no matter how much money your family had, where you had a villa, or how many boats you had on the sea. Don't mention any of the above additional identities. Whoever dared to mention it would be punished. Didn't you see that the emperor's first prince, Li Jun, and the eldest princess, Pan'er, were there obediently doing things? Because of the winter and summer holidays, school had just started not long ago. However, there was no Teacher's Day after the summer holidays. Students didn't need to think about what gifts they made for their teachers, what kind of family would treat their teachers to a meal, or what kind of singing, dancing, and poetry party would be held. One day, they didn't need to respect their teachers. If they really wanted to show respect, they could learn the knowledge that the teacher taught them. When they had time, they could personally make a few dishes and a pot of wine. Accompany the teacher to drink a few mouthfuls and discuss the Tao. The teacher would be happy for a long time. This year, the Imperial College in the capital was on holiday, so the students there didn't leave. It was different from the children in other places who didn't go home. The children in other places didn't leave. Some of them had parents who were busy, some didn't have a home, and some planned to participate in the social activities arranged by the school, such as delivering newspapers or helping people read newspapers in the tea house. Most of the children who stayed behind went to the merchants to see how they operated. When the merchants worked, they didn't let the children personally participate. They also had to spare some people to watch over them, which delayed a lot of work. However, even so, the merchants were very willing. They participated in the Chaoyang action, paid for the school, and brought the children to their family's business to watch. They hoped that the children would leave a good impression. In the future, when they learned something, maybe a few more of them would come to their business to help. The students of the Imperial College in the capital wanted to have a chance to see Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. This year, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan didn't leave the capital. They still had the position of regional governor. When they had nothing to do, they went to various departments. They went to the Ministry of Works the most, then the Ministry of Revenue. However, they didn't go to the Imperial College. During the holidays, the students of the Imperial College didn't plan to leave. They hoped that Wang Wan, who had finished her confinement, could come out and visit the Imperial College with Zhang Xiaobao. In the end, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan didn't come. Instead, it was Xiaobei and the others. It wasn't that Xiaobei and the others didn't want to come out. It was just that the four children of Ji Xiang and Rui had been quite distant from them. They used a few months to regain their position in the hearts of the children. Then, they brought the 2-year-old children out to play. The group's destination was the capital's West Railway Station. To be precise, it was a flat area 1 kilometer away from the railway station. They planned to build a freight warehouse here. The railway station on the west side of the capital had just been built a little over a month ago. At present, there were no buildings on the ground 1 kilometer away. They had only flattened the ground a little. When they arrived, Xiaobei stopped and looked around. He clapped his hands twice and shouted, "Let's make this clear first. In a while, someone will bring over the materials for the stove, pots, and so on. There will also be wheelbarrows for transport. The older ones will be sent to transport. The younger ones will do the work for me. The older ones will be in charge of looking after them. We chose you because you are the most knowledgeable of your age group. Students are ranked according to how knowledgeable they are. You are now students. When interacting with others today, we don't want to see any attitude or temperament that doesn't belong to students. If you talk to others impolitely, arrogantly, look down on others, order others around, or imply that your family is rich and powerful, once we find out, humph." The 500 students opened their eyes wide and did not dare to make a sound. Especially those who had power and influence, they were even more nervous. They knew very well that they should not show off their family background in front of Xiaobei and the others. Xiaobei and the others wanted to establish an image for the whole Tang Empire. Following them out must be in line with their target behavior. Su Yilong, who had been learning from Xiaobei and the others, sensibly brought up a loudspeaker and asked cooperatively, "Xiaobei, why did you find us today?" "That's a good question." Xiaobei nodded at Su Yilong to show his appreciation. He continued, "What's the work today?" "It's boiled beans, the kind that are green before the beans are ripe." "Where did the edamame come from?" "You definitely won't be able to guess." "It came from Shanyang County of Chuzhou in our Tang Empire. A total of 3,000 tons. I bought it." Xiaobei gestured a number. Seeing that many people were surprised, he nodded with satisfaction and continued, "You must be thinking, how do I eat the edamame that I bought? Why don't I process it locally?" All of the students had the same expression on their faces. Speaking of which, Shanyang County is really good. It's next to the Huai River, and there's a canal. It's not far from the sea, and there's a small fork in the railway. The local bamboo resources are rich, very suitable for the growth of vegetables. Moreover, whether it's the breeding of livestock, poultry, or aquatic products, it provides a natural and convenient environment. But it's really not suitable for planting soybeans. It's not that it can't be planted, but the natural climate has a great impact on the growth of soybeans. If you plant soybeans, the land can't be planted with other crops. It's a waste of beneficial resources. Especially this year, there's a lot of rain there. The soybeans in a similar place are about to be harvested, but they're still green. A child who's studying in the school sent us a telegram and asked what we should do. The soybeans are not big now, and they're not round. Their snacks now are boiled edamame. We don't have the ability to let the local soybeans grow and ripen immediately, so we can only buy most of them, 3,000 tons. They can continue to cook the rest. Xiaobei explained why the edamame was shipped over. It was mainly to help the local growers reduce their losses. The students could guess that the price that Xiaobei and the others gave was not low. Of course, they wouldn't give the price of ripened soybeans. It was already a great favor to let the people there not lose money. Since we bought the soybeans, we naturally have to cook them. Green soybeans are more difficult to preserve, so they'll be sterilized at high temperatures and have some salt. We really don't want to wait for the water route. The speed of going against the current is slow, so we'll use the train. We've prepared 1,000 large pots. Each pot can cook 50 kilograms. It needs to be cooked 600 times, one pot every 15 minutes. There are other pots being sent over, so it'll probably take a few days. Actually, what I want to cook now is people, not those damn enemy. I asked you to come here to tell you that if you have the opportunity to be a local official in the future, you should investigate the local situation clearly before you do anything. As for the local officials involved in this matter, wait until we finish cooking the edamame. Xiaobei gritted his teeth as he spoke. His face was gloomy, and it was obvious that the officials involved were in big trouble. 3,000 tons of edamame were there, so no excuse or reason would work. Xiaobei, can you just buy the beans and cook them? An older student asked. How is that possible? They have to be frozen. Otherwise, why don't we process them locally in Chuzhou City? Winter comes early in the capital, so we can reduce the follow-up investment. We chose the West Station because there's a big hole 1 kilometer away. It used to be a small lake, but it's dried up. It's not worth it to fill it with soil. We discussed and decided to build an underground thermal storage room. The project is about to end in a few days. We originally planned to store fruits, but now we can only put the edamame. It's a last resort. Xiaobei, why don't you just cook the edamame and sell it in the store? Your family is so powerful, so it's easy, someone asked. Hehe. At the mention of this, Xiaobei smiled happily. He blinked and said, it's not worth much now, and we'll lose money. You guys do the math. If we buy it at a premium, we'll add the cost of transportation, processing, and storage. When we sell it to the restaurant, the price is indeed high, but we take advantage of the original restaurant's low price advantage. In other words, if we put the edamame we bought in the restaurant, we'll make a profit and the restaurant will lose money. Then we can just ask our brothers and sisters for money. Why do we have to go around in circles? Everyone felt that this made sense, but they couldn't figure out why Xiaobei was smiling. Let me tell you, under normal circumstances, soybeans are related to sunshine. For example, in the south, there are also places with low rainfall and places with low temperature, such as the northeast. However, this refers to the formation of soybeans. The rate of soybean oil production and soybean products output has nothing to do with taste. Take the edamame we bought, for example. It's not mature because of the climate. If we wait for a while, it will mature. However, one is delaying the planting of other things, and the other is that the beans are not full. But there's an advantage. The current edamame tastes sweet and tastes better than the normally grown edamame. We plan to save it for winter and sell it. It'll be cheap even if the price is several times higher. This is a commercial action, not a charity. We're just holding the goods. Anyway, our money can't be completely circulated. We don't care about the speed of cash flow and the return rate when we hold the goods. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you don't believe me, you can try a pot of it when it's cooked. Although the beans are relatively small, the more you chew them, the more fragrant they become. The taste is different from normal soybeans. As Xiaobei spoke, he noticed that many people were salivating. Thinking about his actions, he said embarrassedly, how about this? When winter is almost the new year, I'll give each of you 10 caddies. Although they're boiled and frozen, they'll taste the same after they've melted. How about 20 caddies? I also have a cost. All right, we'll see when the time comes. If we really can't sell them, I'll give you more. Go and transport the goods. The train is here. The older and stronger ones went to push the wheelbarrow, while the younger ones waited excitedly. They believed Xiaobei when he said he would give them 20 caddies, but they didn't have any hope when he said he would give them more if they couldn't sell them. Chapter 2. 3,000 tons didn't sound like much at first, but the number in front was 3,000. However, in terms of kilograms, it was 3 million. If these late soybeans were left in the production area, it would cause a great loss to the local people. It wouldn't cause a riot, but it would greatly damage the local government's credibility. If Xiaobei bought it and made a profit in the winter, it would be a marketing success. If it lost money, it would be a failure of the plan. They would bear the risk. However, the local government wouldn't have it easy either. Whether Xiaobei and his team succeeded or failed, the local officials would be punished. There was no such thing as tuition fees or paying for economic development. Xiaobei gritted his teeth as he looked at the carts of soybeans. He was thinking about how to increase the punishment of the local officials. After thinking for a while, he realized that if he didn't use his privilege as a patrol inspector of the Tang Empire, there was no good way. Mistakes were made, and the local officials admitted it when they were caught. Even if it was partly due to luck, they didn't quibble. It didn't matter if it was a specific crime. At most, they would be stripped of their official position. It was impossible to say that they would be beheaded. If it was 20 years ago, such local officials could even ask for money and reduce taxes from the imperial court. It was a natural disaster. It wasn't something that could be done by humans. The weather was bad this year. However, Xiaobei and his team didn't agree with the natural disaster. They all believed that the Yamen of Shanyang County in Chuzhou City made a mistake. Was the rain the reason? Was the small cold wave that hadn't been seen for many years an excuse? Don't expect to escape. It's not our fault if we don't admit to 3 million kilograms of soybeans. Xiaobei grabbed a handful of soybeans and murmured. The reason why the soybeans were called Mao was that there was a layer of fine hair on the surface of the bean pod. It was very clear from a special angle and felt very furry. There was also hair on the mature beans, but it wasn't called soybeans. It was called soybeans or soybeans. There's a bug. It's white. A student from the Imperial College had sharp eyes and found a bug. He curiously reached out to touch it. The bug immediately rolled into a ball. The people nearby all looked at Xiaobei at the same time. Xiaobei didn't care at all. He said, "Cook. Mix the seasonings well. Cook one pot at a time. We'll eat the first few pots. The purpose is to control the heat. Cook in the big pot without a lid. Cook for no more than 15 minutes. The soybeans will be green. Otherwise, they will be yellow. It won't look good." Bug. The student who was pinching the bug reminded. "Let's cook them together. When it's time to sell them, there will be people who will select the ingredients. Don't be afraid, it's just a worm. It's not dirty, it's cleaner than the maggots in the sauce. Time waits for no one. Why don't I get someone to pick out a bunch of insects and fry them as snacks? They're fragrant and crispy. Have you eaten fried grasshoppers before?" Well, those who shook their heads were all children from rich families. Poor people like me have to eat a few pounds of it every year. Xiaobei licked his lips as if he was savoring the aftertaste. Xiao Yuan nodded in agreement at the side. After cooking the edamame, they planned to find a paddy field that had already been harvested to catch grasshoppers. For people like them who had traveled extensively with their families, there was nothing they couldn't eat. They had tasted scorpions, centipedes, moths, and so on. Especially on the trip to India, it was really addictive. Of course, they didn't eat raw things that could easily produce parasites. It wasn't that they couldn't eat them, but they were afraid that they would get sick from eating them. If it was livestock that had been quarantined, they could use a knife to cut off the meat and stuff it into their mouths to eat raw. They would eat until their mouths and hands were full of blood. For them, there was no blessing that they couldn't enjoy and no suffering that they couldn't endure. Many students from the Student Directorate of Studies from rich families had never tried it before. When they heard Xiaobei's words, they swallowed their saliva. It wasn't slander but disgust. They shuddered when they imagined the scene of eating insects. As they had to look at the temperature first, only 3 pots started to boil water. The others started to wash the edamame. Normally, it would take a pot of cold water to boil for a quarter of an hour. If the edamame was taken out to cool, the water in the pot would still be boiling. It wouldn't take a quarter of an hour to boil the edamame again. The seasoning in the pot could still be used. After boiling it a few times, the water would be changed. Xiaobei and the other 9 people, plus Su Yilong, were busy. Only a small portion of the students in the student directorate knew how to work. Most of the rest were beginners. Xiaobei looked at the situation, frowned, and sighed. She was obviously very dissatisfied with these people who didn't work hard and couldn't distinguish between grains and vegetables. The students were smart and knew how to read people's expressions. When they saw Xiao Bei's displeasure, they lowered their heads and worked seriously. They were also considering whether to participate in more practical activities after today. Anyway, they had to participate before the imperial examination and accumulate enough hours. Otherwise, they wouldn't be qualified. Some people were quick-witted. Seeing that the atmosphere was not good, they came over to smooth things over. Xiao Bei, the officials in charge of Chuzhou City's Shanyang County, are really wrong this year. The rain in front was fine, but who would have thought that there would be a small cold wave? It's just like the heavy snow in Luzhou. It's too rare, and we're not prepared. What? Luzhou? The heavy snow? I was born in Luzhou. Okay, I'll ask you if it's possible for it to snow in Luzhou. Let me ask you, if my father went to Luzhou to take office the year I was born, what he encountered was not a hurricane, but a heavy snow. 1,000 miles would be white and frozen for more than a month. Do you think Luzhou could survive? Xiao Bei asked. The person hurriedly nodded. Yes, of course. Xiaobao and Cuckoo are watching over there. What's there to be afraid of? They'll definitely come up with countless ways to solve the disaster. Then, let me ask you again. If my elder brother or sister were in charge of Chuzhou City's Shanyang County this year, and the soybeans were planted, would the soybeans be able to survive the small cold wave until they ripen? Xiao Bei asked again. The person nodded again. Yes, of course. That's right. In that case, how can the local officials be wronged? Xiao Bei asked as he looked at the person who spoke. The person rubbed his hands together. Well, who can compare themselves to Xiaobao and Cuckoo? That's too much. Who can you compare yourself to? If I was there, I could do it. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a cold wind. We can just smoke the fields. It's common sense. This is called common sense, understand? The current situation shows that the local disaster response mechanism is seriously lacking. After saying that, Xiao Bei ran to the pot to look at the water. The person was embarrassed. He didn't admit that what Xiao Bei said was common sense, but he did learn about it in books. It was true that they were not prepared, but who would have thought that there would be a sudden cold wave in this month? Of course, it was impossible to reason with this. As Xiao Bei said, if the local officials were Xiaobao and Cuckoo, then there would be no problem. Even if they couldn't stop the cold wave, they would still have the ability to sell the edamame at a reasonable price. What bad luck, sigh. The person could only sigh for the officials of Chuzhou City's Shanyang County. They couldn't manage the telegraph department. A child was troubled by the problem of having only edamame as a snack and asked Xiao Bei to think of a solution. As a result, the local officials fell. Was there any justice left? Brother Yurong, you're not wronged. Su Yilong came over and said to the student. She knew this person. His surname was Wang, and his family had some power. His name was Run, and his courtesy name was Yurong. They used to meet occasionally, but now he was running around with Xiao Bei and the others all day long. He didn't have time to meet with his old friends, but he would always sponsor them to hold poetry meetings or something. How is it not wronged? They caught up with something that hasn't happened for decades. Wang Run still insisted on his own idea. It has nothing to do with decades or hundreds of years. They really didn't prepare. If I were a local official, I would order people to take the local bamboo and dry it for future use. Su Yilong also insisted. If there was no cold wave, what would happen? When there was drought, they would split the bamboo to make a canal to draw water. When there was a flood, they would gather the bamboo to make a column to store the soil. When there were not enough boats in the river, they would make a row. In midsummer, they would put up a shed to shade. So? Forget it. I'm not familiar with them. I'm just lamenting about a telegram. Wang Run shook his head. Su Yilong smiled. What does it have to do with the telegram? Brother Yurong, do you mean that they were investigated because of an extra telegram? I think it's because they didn't do a good job in the local area. If they didn't have this telegram, they would have kept their position. It would be the negligence of the Tang Empire's inspectors. If that's the case, it wouldn't be as simple as them losing their official position, but countless people would lose their heads. Yes, Wang Run admitted. The word benefit is difficult. He was talking about the inspectors sent by the imperial court. If they couldn't find any problems, and later people found out that it was the previous inspection that had a problem, then the previous inspection would be unlucky. If they found out, they would be heavily rewarded. If there was malfeasance, as long as it was verified and confirmed, the inspector would be rewarded with 1,000 strings of coins. If the local official was found to have embezzled 10,000 strings of coins, the inspector would be rewarded with 5,000 strings of coins. All kinds of rewards were placed there, and so were the punishments. It was impossible not to work hard. Xiaobei was no longer worried about the final result of those officials. When the first pot of boiled edamame was placed in a basin, she blew on it and grabbed a handful, squeezing it to eat. Why didn't she just use her mouth? Because she was afraid of eating worms. She could fry it, but she didn't like to eat boiled ones. Okay, try all of them. Xiao Yuan, here. She stretched her hand in front of Xiao Yuan. Xiao Yuan picked one up and ate it. He smacked his lips. There's too much cinnamon. I think so too. Xiaobei agreed. I didn't find it. I eat it well. A student ate a few in a row and immediately grabbed another handful. If you eat less, you'll think it's good at first. After eating more, you'll find a sour taste. Also, if you cook it for too long, the fishy taste of the beans won't be enough. Adjust it in the next pot. Xiaobei concluded. When it came to eating, they were very authoritative. Usually, the food they ate at home could be said to be excellent. They only had to deal with it when they went out and had no other choice. After 2 hours of experimentation, the people who were full determined the best temperature and seasoning. They were busy until night, and after another day of work the next day, Xiaobei finally let them go back to the Imperial College. All of them felt that their backs and legs were sore. Xiaobei and the others didn't continue to look at the boiled edamame. They returned home and rested for 2 days. Then, they organized the team and headed straight for Feng Province. Feng Province was the core of the grasslands management. Because it was next to the Yellow River, it was also a distribution center. Further north was the former territory of the Turks. Now, it was contracted. Many large pastures were adjacent to each other. Xiaobei and the others went there to see the living conditions of the farm owners. They walked around the grassland and took a look at the experiment of potato planting and the training of their own team. After training, their own team could accompany them on long-distance travels. It was just that they had never cooperated with each other. This was a good opportunity. Of course, for the first time, many old people and their families cooperated with them. As for potatoes, they could be planted almost everywhere in the Tang Empire. However, potatoes were delicious, had a lot of starch, and had a large output. There were only 3 places that ranked first. The north of Hebei Province, which was Heilongjiang, where Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan lived, the Qiu region, where Gansu was, and the last one was Lingzhou, Fengzhou, and Inner Mongolia. They couldn't go to Qiu region because it was too far away. The commander-in-chief's mansion in Bohai was also far away. Only Feng Province was relatively closer. Although there were seed bases arranged by the Sidong Temple in various places in the Tang Empire, Xiaobei and the others didn't plan to go to the nearest Hunan province. The potatoes there were not ripe yet. It was a greenhouse experiment. The normal ones had already been harvested. This year's potatoes can be eaten freely. Xiaobei, who was marching on the road, said complacently. Su Yilong, who followed them on the road, secretly swallowed her saliva and asked uncertainly, Really? Yes. Xiaobei nodded and said with certainty, after many years of reproduction, we can finally eat without thinking about making seeds. The output of cabbage, potatoes, sweet potatoes, green onions, and radishes is getting higher and higher. Very good. Cabbage and radishes are not valuable. The output is low. We can plant other vegetables instead. Su Yilong didn't like these 2 vegetables. Xiao Yuan followed and said, the key is not that they are valuable, but that they are suitable for storage in low-temperature areas in winter. There are also various dried vegetables. They are treasures in the cold winter. There can be greenhouses. Su Yilong reminded. There can also be venison, bear paws, sea cucumber, and shark's fin, right? Do you still ask whether the toad is an official or not? Xiao Yuan said. Su Yilong lowered her head and didn't say anything. She knew that Xiao Yuan was talking about the illusion of, why not eat minced meat? While walking on the road, The new and old members in the team were also communicating. It was mainly the new members who asked questions and the old members who answered, or the old members who encountered something and talked about their experience. Although the new members came from specialized classes and learned a lot, when it came to special tricks, the old members were still the best. The trivial problems in the team's journey were the most important. How to go to the toilet, how to cook according to the wind, when to increase the goods for the livestock, and when to bear some of the burden. These were all knowledge. They were different from other simple teams. Unlike the caravan and the army, they were a comprehensive team. Combat, organization, logistics, and so on, they had to be able to change at any time. Even the chef could pick up the machine gun and fire at the crucial moment. In addition to serving the people from the other departments, the maids also needed to educate Xiaobei and the rest in the little details of life. When needed, they could become overlords. Even Xiaobei and the rest were always prepared. Otherwise, why would Su Yilong's grandfather let him follow them? He was really cultivating people. With the departure of Xiaobei and the rest, the entire capital seemed deserted. Li Longji had been quite upset these days. Usually, there would always be a large group of children chattering about in the various palaces, but now they were all gone. Without Xiaobei's guidance, the other children couldn't play, and it was impossible for them to enter the palace and pull a maid to play games. They didn't have the guts, and they wouldn't be as stupid as Xiaobei. At least, that was what the censorate thought, although they didn't dare to impeach. Another winter is coming. I wonder if the Great Wall is still there when it snows in Jili State? In Xingqing Palace, Li Longji put on an extra coat and looked at the goldfish blowing bubbles in the fish tank. He seemed to be talking to himself. Your Majesty, I don't think there's much left. In the past, people would rather spend money to buy the location and even let people preserve it in ice. Recently, people don't pay attention to it. I guess they've stopped taking money. After all, it costs a lot. Gao Lishur continued, Xiaobei and the rest can bear this kind of consumption. After all, they're rich. But they're not stupid. Why would they spend money on a dead thing that exists every year? One of their meals may be the annual income of an ordinary family, but they won't waste money needlessly. Well, I know. When Xiaobei and the children play in the sand, their pants are full of patches. The person who made the patches is very skilled. He made all kinds of patterns so that people can't tell. You're right. Snow occurs every year. This year, there's no major event in the imperial court, right? Li Longji returned to the previous topic. Gao Lishur pondered for a moment and replied, it should be fine. It's just that they're still young. They should experience the magnificence of the mountains and rivers of the Tang Empire from a young age. Go and tell Xiaobao that this time, I'll pay for it myself, but I won't be responsible for their expenses. It's not that I don't want to, but that there's never been such a rule. Li Longji had made up his mind to travel and insisted on dragging Zhang Xiaobao and his family along. He hoped to go to the commander-in-chief's office in the Bohai Sea. In the end, where they could go would depend on Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's decision. Li Longji understood that even if they were going to travel, they had to have a purpose. How could they travel in such a large group just to have fun? Gao Lishur ordered someone to inform his adopted son. The person who went was Luobin. His position in the palace was already very high, but as long as he was in the palace, he had to personally go when it came to matters involving the Zhang Xiaobao and Wang families. He would never rely on others. This was the foundation of his position. When Luobin found Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, the two of them were arranging for some of the cotton balls that had just been collected. Shui Yun's family was about to arrive. Shui Yun's family now had 62 members. Other than a few who took turns staying in the capital, the rest had all returned to the mountains behind Zhuangzi in Sanshui County to settle down. When the children of the family got married, they had to bring their partners back to live with them. They were not allowed to run away with them. Choosing a partner was not based on family background. Shui Yun did not expect her family to rely on the power of other families to develop. It was fine as long as they had enough IQ. Otherwise, there was no need to talk about how many cliffs one's family owned in a certain area. If one's IQ was high enough, even if they were not strong enough, it would not be a problem. A thin body could be made up for, and fighting skills could also be taught. However, if one's IQ was low, it would be a big problem. For example, today, they had brought their family over to ask for cotton balls. Could a person with low IQ understand? If they didn't understand, who would make a nest for them? They could only get branches and add their own feathers to make it. After it snowed, Tianyi shivered from the cold. Would they marry their children to them to suffer? What Shui Yun knew, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan knew even better. When they heard in the telegram that their family had taken out the things in their nest at the top of the mountain and thrown them away, the two of them knew that they had to prepare things. Thus, they had people eject a batch of cotton balls that had just been collected so that Shui Yun and the others could bring them back home to redecorate. Last year's cotton balls were no longer warm enough. As for other planks, branches, straw, and so on that might be needed, the people on Zhuangzi could prepare them. When Luobin entered the courtyard, it was actually a sports field that was usually used for training. A group of eagles happened to fall from the sky and landed on the wooden bars that had been prepared. Before they landed, they threw down the gifts they had brought, causing the sports field to become busy. This was the first time Luobin had seen such a situation. The eyes of a group of eagles looking over were frightening. The things they threw down were both alive and dead. They were all bloody. The dead ones were easy to deal with, but if there were snakes in the living ones, the people who went to catch them had to be very careful. Yo, General Shui Yun, long time no see. How are you? Luobin waved at Shui Yun in greeting. Shui Yun glanced over, then turned back to continue watching the people who were busy catching the animals. Luobin saw that Shui Yun didn't want to talk to him, but he didn't mind. He continued, "Your family is here, right? It's good that you're here. It's good that you're here. Have you eaten?" His words reminded the people who were busy. Immediately, someone went to the side yard where the livestock were kept. They slaughtered, skinned, and cut the meat into small strips to feed Shui Yun's family. There were also people who were responsible for hanging a wide sink with clear water flowing in it. There were also people who began to spray water on the side to bathe the eagles. The medical staff also came up to check on the eagles one by one. When they found any scratches, they immediately disinfected them. The last group of people who came up were people who were familiar with the eagles. They hugged the eagles intimately and at the same time determined where the eagles in front of them were uncomfortable. It was similar to taking care of a child. Zhang Xiaobao also personally chatted with Shui Yun. "Do you want salt?" Zhang Xiaobao asked. He also brought a water bowl with a little salt. Shui Yun tasted it and looked at his family. He glanced at Zhang Xiaobao. Zhang Xiaobao understood. "No. Do you want fur?" Zhang Xiaobao had someone bring over a large box with a wide mouth. It was filled with rabbit fur and linen. Shui Yun looked at it and called out twice to his family. Then, 3 eagles called out. Immediately, someone rolled the meat strips in the feathery box and fed them to the 3 eagles. After feeding them several strips in a row, the 3 eagles began to vomit. The vomit was a mixture of fur and stomach contents. There were even small stones in it. After vomiting, the eagles drank some water and began to close their eyes to rest. They probably couldn't continue eating for the time being. Luobin opened his mouth slightly in surprise. Then, he asked in confusion, "Young master, it's the procedure of taking care of the eagles. Shui Yun's family has Shui Yun, so it's easier to take care of them. If you need anything, you can ask him, and he will tell you. It's more troublesome to take care of other eagles. Many times, the eagles get sick and die for unknown reasons." As Zhang Xiaobao explained, he stroked Shui Yun's head. Shui Yun closed his eyes comfortably and enjoyed it. Luobin nodded as if he understood. Then, he asked, "Don't wild eagles live?" "They live, but living is different. Just like humans, they are all alive. Can the people of the Great Tang live the same way as people from other places? If Shui Yun and the others are sick, we will treat them. Wild eagles can't survive and die. The eagles raised in the Great Tang are specially checked regularly. People from other places don't have such treatment," Zhang Xiaobao said with emotion. No one knew whether he was sighing about the people or the eagles. Luobin didn't think there was anything wrong with investing more in the eagles. He said, "It's okay to treat them better, especially Shui Yun. He is the best eagle in the world. He can command all the eagles raised in the Great Tang. Without him, the eagles of the Great Tang can only do simple reconnaissance and hunting." Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan also agreed. Shui Yun's greatest function was not to kill a few people in battle, but his ability to command. With him, the eagles raised in the Great Tang could be used to transport goods. They were especially important in disaster relief. Not only were they flexible, but they were also fast. If a group of backpackers got lost in the mountains, it was most efficient to send out a group of eagles to find them. They could easily lock onto their position and then circle around. The rescue personnel on the ground didn't have to spend any effort to search. If a village lost contact with the outside world due to a natural disaster, Shui Yun could command the eagles to airdrop supplies. It was safer and more convenient than sending out planes. Without Shui Yun, the airdrop ability was lost. In reality, airdrops were often the most important thing. For example, in highlands besieged by heavy snow and torrential rain, the existence of Shui Yun was the hope of survival for the trapped people. After Shui Yun's family finished resting, the bundles of cotton were sent over. Zhang Xiaobao said to Shui Yun, "Xiaobei and the others have gone out for a walk. If you have time, you can fly around in the sky." After saying that, everyone made room and waited for Shui Yun's family to fly high before diving down. Otherwise, it would be difficult to fly if they just grabbed something on the ground. Eagles were the most beautiful when they were flying. The larger and longer the eagle's wingspan, the more handsome they were. When they swooped down to hunt, it was a display of strength and beauty. They could mix fierceness, speed, stretch, and leisure together. Anyone who had seen an eagle hunting had a dream of becoming an eagle, just to experience that moment of pride and conquest. Shui Yun was the overlord of this dream. Today, Luo Bin was lucky enough to see a group of eagles swooping down. Although they weren't hunting, the momentum was not much different. 62 eagles circling in the sky and swooping down one after another was not a common sight. The people near the capital all looked up excitedly. Some had even chosen a place to wait. They had already noticed when Shui Yun's family came. Li Longji had also received the news. At this moment, he was standing on the highest floor of the palace, looking through binoculars. From where he was, he could see the Zhang family and Wang family's battlefield in the capital. There was only one battlefield in the entire capital. Rather than saying that it was a training ground for the Zhang family and Wang family, it was more appropriate to say that it was a space for Shui Yun's family to move around. After all, Shui Yun was a general and should have a mansion. Other families built houses in their manors, but Shui Yun's family only had an empty space. At this time, it was clear who was more capable and who was less capable in Shui Yun's family. Every 2 eagles swooped down at the same time. Some eagles had no choice but to slow down when they swooped down to control their landing point. Some eagles grabbed the cotton and flapped their wings vigorously, afraid that they wouldn't be able to fly. Some even missed the cotton and had to circle back up for the next dive. They would probably be beaten up when they returned home. According to people saying, if you can catch cotton, how can you catch living things? The first 11 eagles performed the best. Perhaps it was Shui Yun's deliberate request, but these 11 eagles all changed direction at a low altitude when they grabbed the cotton. Seeing that there was no altitude left, they could still make a sideways sweep, their wings scraping the ground, stirring up clouds of dust. In the end, only Shui Yun and Hong Wan were left. The people below began to shout with all their might, "Shui Yun, come! Shui Yun, come!" The meaning was for Shui Yun to perform a more beautiful move. Perhaps it was because Shui Yun was happy that she could go back and redecorate her new home today, so she circled back for a distance. Hong Wan was the first to fly down diagonally. Shui Yun suddenly accelerated and arrived at the position where the cotton was placed behind Hong Wan. The moment her claws grabbed the cotton, her entire body abruptly turned 180 degrees. A cotton was thrown up and caught by Hong Wan. Shui Yun glided with her back facing the ground and glided to the top of the next cotton. She then did another 180 degrees flip, grabbed the cotton and forcibly twisted her body in the air and soared away, leaving behind a cloud of dust. The people standing around the field were all dumbfounded. Zhang Xiaobao frowned and raised his hands to look. He clenched his fists and shook his head. "What's wrong? Did you find that you can't do the same move?" Wang Wan asked beside him. "Yes, but I can't do the last rotation in the air. When I touch the cotton the second time, my arms won't be able to withstand that much pressure and won't be able to do it." Zhang Xiaobao moved his arms to estimate how much pressure he needed to withstand, and at the same time, he bounced his body up again. The previous move was easy to complete. He could run to the front of the first cotton as fast as he could, and then do a fish jump. When his hands touched the cotton, he would push down with all his strength, bounce up, exert strength in his waist, turn his body 180 degrees sideways, release his hands, and continue the previous inverted somersault with his back facing the ground. When his head was down and his feet were up, he would grab the second cotton back. But at this time, if he wanted to complete the twisting in the air, he would have to exert strength in his arms to push against the cotton bag. For example, when jumping on a saddle horse, he would have to do a hand push against the ground and a hand push against the saddle horse. Both times, he would need inertia, the strength of his waist, and the coordination of his body. In this way, even a professional saddle horse athlete would find it difficult to complete, because not only would he need to support himself twice, he would also need to grab the cotton bag twice. Alas, it's different to have wings. Zhang Xiaobao could only helplessly conclude. Wang Wan just smiled. After a while, the others all exclaimed. It turned out that there were differences between eagles, and the differences were very big. Only the two pilots who came back from their rotation were silent. They kept thinking about the domineering aura of the eagles when they swooped down. That was what pilots should have, and it also reminded them of the words of the young master and the young lady. The sky always belonged to the hero, and only the same kind of knight could compete with the sky knights. No matter how many weapons on the ground could reach the sky, they were always at a disadvantage. It was not only in speed, but also in the arrogance of the sky. Under the sky, no one could beat me, and I ruled the sky. In the face of a hail of bullets, I can dive down like an eagle. Now, the two pilots finally understood that when the Shui Yun family swooped down, they had an indomitable momentum. Zhang Xiaobao walked over, patted the shoulders of the two pilots, and said, "How do you feel? In 2 days, I will arrange for you to see the scene of the Shui Yun family hunting in the mountains, valleys, and plains." The two nodded with yearning. Chapter 3. Xiaobei and the others wanted to go to a place in Fengzhou to look at potatoes, so they walked along the Yellow River. After coming out of the capital, they first went east and then turned north, which happened to be the route of the Yellow River. It was better than crossing the mountains and then going to the desert. It was not that their team could not pass through such steep terrain, but that it was meaningless. The road was difficult, and they walked slowly. They could not expect to meet anyone for 10 days or half a month. Walking along the Yellow River was different. In any case, the Yellow River was a mother river. If people wanted to live, they had to rely on a water source. Xiaobei and the others made up their minds to have more contact with people along the way. They did not expect to catch a corrupt official or anything. The current officials had become smarter, especially after the imperial court did not give them land and changed it to a simple salary. In addition, they would be inspected openly and secretly almost every half a month, and they would be given a generous reward when they left office. The officials calculated the cost of committing crimes and found that there were no huge benefits and a good way to live after leaving the Tang Empire. They all chose to be honest officials. The imperial court of the Tang Empire paid a lot of money for the inspectors. It seemed to increase the financial burden, but in fact, it made the national treasury more income than before. The officials who were qualified to participate in the morning court all understood what was going on. The local officials used various means to embezzle thousands of times more money than the inspectors. More importantly, once the officials put their minds on how to embezzle money, they would not be able to put more energy into governing the area. Once it became a habit or a hidden rule, the officialdom would be in chaos. The people would no longer support the imperial court and lose the hearts of the people. No matter how tall the Great Wall was, it would be useless. Therefore, Xiaobei and the others could only try to find trouble with the officials based on their abilities, but it was difficult to find any officials who secretly put money into their own pockets. Walking along the Yellow River could be close to the people. Every time they stopped at a place, they would take a look and then invite everyone to sing, dance, eat, and so on. It was impossible to say that they did not commit any crimes. According to the people, if they did not commit any crimes, why did they come? Could it be that you don't like the people of our village? You came to our door but did not even say hello? Did we offend you? Did you still treat us as Tang people? Under such circumstances, during the month-long journey, Xiaobei and the others had nearly half a month to help the people repair their houses. The 9 little fellows and Su Yilong each drank more than a caddy of grape wine, which was over the limit. The only thing worth rejoicing over was that they had already considered the problems they would encounter along the way. They had prepared a lot of food and building materials. There were also sets of toolboxes. There were also kitchen knives, hoes, and other accessories that they could exchange or give away. As for the corresponding wooden handles, they believed that the people would make them themselves and install them. Along the way, the commoners took out their own dried vegetables, cured meat, ham, and other things to serve them. Xiaobei's team didn't say anything and used them to cook. They didn't give them a single copper coin. Giving them money would hurt their feelings, so they could only use other things to make up for it. Today, Xiaobei's team arrived at Shalu village, which was next to the Yellow River in Yinzhou's Zhenxiang County. There weren't many people in the village. Last year's census recorded 210 households, 1,305 people. This year, under normal circumstances, there would be a few more, a dozen, or dozens more. It was hard to be sure. It needed to see how many children were born and how many people died. Relatively speaking, the data was quite accurate. There wasn't a situation where someone wasn't registered in the household register and didn't report it. It involved welfare, especially children. If your family accidentally gave birth to twins 3 times in a row, don't be afraid. They won't be fined and will be rewarded for being too good at giving birth. You don't have to worry about whether your children will have food to eat. The imperial court will help you raise them. If your family had twins this year, they would even invite you to make a report. Was there a secret recipe? The village chief of Shalu village is surnamed Zhao. He's 42 years old this year. He took over from his father. His father was the previous village chief. His grandfather was the previous village chief. His great-grandfather, unknown. Xiang as in detail. Xiang as in not Xiang. No education? No education? Just no enrollment record. When they were about to reach Shalu village, Xiaoyuan took out a piece of paper and introduced it. I told you to memorize it. Why don't you read it? Who doesn't know how to read it? Look, I'll read it for you. Why isn't there anything on the paper? Xiaobei grumbled in dissatisfaction. He snatched the paper and was about to read it, but he was dumbfounded. Paper was paper. It was like a big white book. It was blank and much cleaner than the word field. Xiaoyuan, you're bullying me. Brother, look at Xiaoyuan. He's clearly holding a blank piece of paper, and yet he's still pretending. Xiaobei was unhappy again and complained to Xiaohai. Xiaohai was silent. No matter how much he protected his sister, he couldn't be shameless, right? No matter how good his logic was, he couldn't find a reason to be biased towards his sister. The others were also silent, making Su Yilong feel that the atmosphere was somewhat heavy. Just as she was about to open her mouth to ease the tension, Xiaobei smiled at Xiaoyuan with the paper in his hand and said, Xiaoyuan, I know. You want to give me a surprise, right? Forget it. What surprise? Last night when everyone was eating, you gave me a piece of information and asked me to look at it. I scanned it twice. Then you pulled me to ask how many experimental sites the Sidong Temple had here. What did you want me to do? I could only follow the method my brother and sister taught me to memorize the pictures. Now you're asking me about the local situation. If I don't take a blank piece of paper, how can I concentrate on recalling the pictures? The simple and honest Xiaoyuan spoke his mind. Xiaobei pouted. Xiaoyuan, you won't be able to find a wife in your lifetime. An official who doesn't know how to coax girls isn't a good genius. Humph. Ah, a group of people rushed over. They must be from Shalu village. Xiaoyuan, how does the information describe village chief Xiao? It didn't write. 42 years old, Xiaoyuan replied. Looking at his expression, it was clear that he didn't care what Xiaobei said. Su Yilong, who was at the side, realized that she was once again nervous for nothing. The atmosphere didn't matter to the 9 people. Looking at Xiaobei and Xiaoyuan, she shook her head and felt endless envy in her heart. She didn't believe that Xiaobei wouldn't marry Xiaoyuan. Habit was a scary thing. What was more scary was Xiaoyuan's personality and talent. In the blink of an eye, Xiaobei, who had forgotten what had just happened, was staring at the crowd. Suddenly, he clapped his hands and shouted happily, "I know. The one surrounded in the middle is the village chief, 42 years old and looks slightly old." Xiao Yuan interrupted without giving face. "That's his father. He's 57 years old this year." "How do you know?" Xiao Bei was unconvinced. "Because there are records of his father. He has less hair on his forehead, 2 sideburns over his shoulders, and 2 moles on his left cheek," Xiao Yuan added. "I really can't afford to be hurt today. Xiao Yuan, next time you insist on saying everything, even if I interrupt you." Xiao Bei saw that the person in the middle was indeed bald. The person supporting him by the side was probably the current village chief. Seeing that the people were getting closer, Xiao Bei first looked at the guard at the side. The guard nodded, meaning that the scout from before had confirmed that there was no danger in the crowd. Xiao Bei immediately took the lead and ran over. His main target was the bald old man. "As for the current village chief, sorry, your father is more important than you. If you dare to be unreasonable, I'll catch you and send you to the mines." "Crime. Unfilial. Uncle Zhao, why did you come personally? We should be the ones visiting you. But your body is really good. If it were me, I'd be so tired that I'd be panting from running all the way here from our village." Xiao Bei, who ran up to him, raised his head and greeted him happily. Not to mention Xiao Bei's official position and background, just based on his appearance, expression, and the words he said, he had won the favor of all the villagers. To what extent? If Xiao Bei accidentally broke one of their thermos bottles, not only would they not say that Xiao Bei was in the wrong, they would even say that they wanted to get a new one, but did not have the time to kick it. At the same time, they would kick the other thermos bottle so that Xiao Bei could enjoy listening to the sound. Even if he did something wrong, that cute look made it impossible for people to feel unhappy. They would even worry that Xiao Bei would feel bad. Plus, with the words "our village" in his speech, he instantly closed the distance between them. The old village chief ran his hands through his hair. He was smiling so widely that his eyes could not be seen. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Our Xiao Bei must be tired. This is my useless son, Zhao Wuneng." The current village chief, Zhao Wuneng, corrected his father's words. His voice was slightly lower. "You can? What can you do?" "Wu, you made a mistake when you were registered, so you are Wu. You think you have half of our Xiao Bei's ability?" The old village chief did not show any mercy and reprimanded him with a straight face. When he turned around to face Xiao Bei and the other 9 people, he changed his expression and said kindly like a father, "I heard that you were going to Feng Zhou. Don't be in a hurry. Go home and stay for 2 days. The village has prepared everything. There is nothing else, but there is a lot of fish. Don't look at the frozen yellow river." Before, the village had a lot of fish online and raised them in warm ponds. Xiao Bei's eyes quickly turned and he nodded. "Eat. Do you have carp? We love to eat carp from the yellow river the most. It has a hint of earthy taste. When I went to India with my elder brother and sister, I was not used to eating fish from the stream. I can't taste the earthy taste and feel less like home." Xiao Yuan and the others nodded vigorously to show their agreement. In fact, they really did not want to eat it. The fish that people caught before the ice was frozen could be sold at a high price when the weather turned cold. However, they had to eat it. Not only did they have to eat it, but they also had to act like they were in a hurry. Otherwise, they would seem estranged. They could only see what the village needed and make up for it when the time came. Seeing that the little guys agreed so readily, the villagers were happy. They turned around and walked back. Xiao Bei grabbed the old village chief's hand and jumped up and down. As he walked, he said, "Uncle Zhao, are there many people in our village who chisel the ice to catch fish in winter?" "Not many. Chiseling the ice is a laborious job. It is far from the big county town. If they are not fresh, they are not worth much if they are transported there. If they were raised in advance, they would have been transported to the county town long ago. They would rent a few houses in the village to raise them and sell them when the time comes." The old village chief replied naturally. Xiao Bei nodded. "Oh, why don't we use a charcoal brazier to float on the water? We have to go over the mountain. Do you think the brazier will overturn?" "Yes, Uncle Zhao. I suddenly thought of something. Our village has a thermometer, right?" Xiao Bei asked again. "Yes, it is used to hatch chicks and ducklings. It was given to me by your family. When the chicks are not hatched, I will take care of it. When the chicks are hatched, I will take care of it once a day. No one is allowed to say that they have lost it. Everyone in the village knows about it. Although the thermometer is small, it requires a lot of technology. Other countries dream of having it, but they can't make it. I have to protect it. I can't blind Xiaobao and Cuckoo. The old village chief spoke very seriously at this time. It was a kind of guarantee. Xiaobei smacked his lips. The cost of that thing is very low. If someone tries to rob it, it will be fine to give it to them to ensure your safety. When you return, report it to the authorities. Since there is a thermometer, I just happened to bring something with me. It is a heater. It is hand-cranked to generate electricity. When it passes through the resistance, it becomes hot. Take out 2 sets to sell fish in winter. As Xiaobei spoke, he asked someone to deliver 2 sets. They were not small, about the size of a commonly used bench. The old man received one in his hand and looked at it carefully. He said, "The things in the village will be accepted. We still have to protect the thermometer with our lives. If we give it to someone who tries to rob us, it will make the robbers think that we are weak. Next time, there will be people who will rob us. Is a needle small? Whoever tries to rob us will have their hands chopped off. It will make people who want to rob us avoid us as soon as they think of Shalu village. Just like dealing with thieves, if you catch them, beat them to death. Let them know that stealing is wrong." "Okay, I support you. Beat them to death. If they die, it will be on me." Xiaobei saw that the old man was determined, so he would not talk to him about the law. There might be situations where people took advantage of loopholes, but generally speaking, the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. The old village chief led Xiaobei and the others to the village. Most of the team stayed by the river. Otherwise, the village would not be able to arrange everything. There were also a few relatively strong village men protecting the hand-cranked heater. They didn't play any tricks of refusing to accept Xiaobei's gift and happily accepted it. They knew very well that this thing, which was the size of 2 benches, was an important tool to increase their income in winter. "Uncle Zhao, don't worry when the thing is broken. Send me a telegram. Someone will come up with the fastest way to solve it. In winter, try to catch the big fish and release the small fish. Lie by the river and leave something for others and grandchildren. Don't catch all of them." Xiaobei followed everyone to the village. On the way, he did not forget to tell the old village chief what to do. I understand. Catch the big fish and release the small fish. Catch the male and release the female. These are the rules of hunting and fishing, especially when taking care of children. It's not good to always trouble you if the thing is broken. We will find a few people to send it to the capital for repair." The old village chief glanced at the heater from time to time and said happily. Xiaobei shook his head. "Don't trouble me. I can't see the telegrams you send. The name is ours. The matters are handled by the people below. The officials will only inform us if they need to clean up. We have a special line at every telegraph office, so it's convenient to use it. How many tens of thousands of telegrams do you want us to deal with it?" Candies? Xiaobei, who was telling the truth, suddenly saw a person in the village carrying a box on his back. The person also held a coal stove in his hand. At first glance, it seemed to be used for heating. Upon closer inspection, he found a few rows of small holes on the wooden box. Xiaobei thought for a moment and remembered the candies blowing, so he asked tentatively. The old village chief stopped and waved at the person. "Idiot, come here. Xiaobei and the others want to eat candies." When the person came closer, the old village chief introduced him to Xiaobei and the others. "This is an old skill passed down in the village. In the past, we used to make clay figurines. Later, when the price of wheat stabilized, we started to make dough figurines. In the past 3 years, when the price of sugar stabilized, we started to make candies. Okay. Continue to make clay figurines and dough figurines. It's a skill. Let's not talk about other things. Let's talk about toys. There are also shapes in them. Help me make a panda." Xiaobei made a very difficult request. The panda did not care about its size, but its color. "I want a koala." Little Yuan thought of something equally cute. Don't listen to Little Yuan. Only Lu Zhou and Chong and have koalas. Ordinary people haven't seen them. Xiaobei was afraid that the other party would be embarrassed, so he helped him out. Little Zhu stood up and opened the drawing folder. She used a pencil to draw 3 pictures on the paper. One was the front, one was the side, and one was the back. Koala. Her craftsmanship shocked the honest fool, and he sincerely commented, "Amazing? Of course it's amazing. You don't have to say it. Hurry up and blow it." The village chief, Zhao Wuning, finally found a chance to interrupt. The idiot was indeed honest and obedient. He put down the stove and put a tin box on the rack to bake. There was a sugar paste inside. It seemed that it had been cooked before. The idiot picked out a piece of sugar paste and dipped his hand into a chipped bowl beside him. He began to process the sugar paste into a hollow shape like a big water droplet. Xiao Bei frowned slightly. The old village chief hurriedly explained, "It's starch, not talc. It can be eaten. Talc can be eaten too. I'm just thinking about who will blow it later." Xiao Bei did not care about why the other party did not wash his hands before. Whoever buys it has to blow it. He's too young and doesn't know how to use strength. It's difficult for an adult to blow it. The idiot finally spoke. Xiao Bei nodded and admitted that it was difficult for the buyer to blow the sugar figurine. However, it was also an important test of skills. Xiao Bei had seen one in Idyll before, and the success rate was very high. She did not know how good the idiot was. While Xiao Bei was thinking, the idiot handed the candy to her and said, "Blow it. You need to use strength. I know. Watch me." Xiao Bei did not need to be told how to use strength. She puffed up her mouth and blew. The idiot began to shape it. When Xiao Bei breathed out, the panda had already taken shape. The idiot was very satisfied and smiled kindly at Xiao Bei. "Xiao Bei, you're amazing." Zhao Wuning praised again. Xiao Bei was modest. "It's okay. It's important to cooperate. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate." Who said this? Zhao Wuning had a strong desire to know. "My brother." Xiao Bei answered. "That makes sense." Zhao Wuning immediately praised. The idiot was brushing the color of the panda. Xiao Bei did not know if he was holding a brush or a small brush. He dipped it in something like black powder and brushed it on the panda. Then, he dipped it in starch to adjust the color. "What's black?" Xiao Bei was a little worried and asked. "Sugar." The old villager gave the answer. This time, Xiao Bei was relieved. She didn't ask why the candy was black, nor did she ask if the black candy was bitter. She knew that as long as the process and the heat were controlled properly, there wouldn't be any problems. Her brother could make the candy into a variety of colors. The easiest way to make black candy was to make black dates, while purple was to make ripe mulberries. Boiling the sugar soup could make the candy from white, yellowish, golden, red, and black. Of course, this required a very deep foundation. It was theoretically possible, but it did not mean that everyone could do it. A panda was finished in the hands of the idiot. The idiot took Xiao Zhu's painting and looked at it carefully. He remade the hollow water droplet. The people around did not show any surprise. Looking at pictures and making things was the most basic professional quality of the Tang Empire's craftsmen. It belonged to the entry level. Some masters even asked their apprentices to do it. Zhao Wuning looked at Xiao Bei fiddling with the panda. He thought for a while and said, "Judging from the changes in the craftsmanship of the idiot's family, it can well reflect the economic development. In the transition of clay figurines, dough figurines, and sugar figurines, the imperial court's policy is the first. At the end of economic development, there will be no sugar figurines, because sugar is no longer a necessity for people." "You little brat, you don't admit that you are incompetent." The old villager began to lecture his son, a 42-year-old brat. At the end of economic development, people no longer pursue sugar, but the craftsmanship of making sugar figurines. When sugar is worthless, the craftsmanship will be valuable. Xiao Bei, am I right? Uncle Zhao, you are so awesome. My brother and sister said that people will cherish the simplicity in their hearts more when they are flashy. In fact, I wanted to make a few models just now. Put the sugar inside and blow on it to make it shape. But then I thought about it. How can I show the craftsmanship in that way? Things for the masses have low production costs, fast processing speed, and convenient use, but they are not worth much. Xiao Bei freed up a hand and gave a thumbs up. The old villager coughed and glanced at his son. Didn't they say that the more beautiful something is, the better? Zhao Wuning was not convinced. Xiao Bei patted his clothes and said, "Who can make a positioning for beauty? Look at my clothes. The shirt and outside are pure cotton, and the inside is filled with duck down. It is clean, simple, generous, and comfortable. Isn't this another form of beauty? Do you think that my family can't make all kinds of flowers on my clothes? Look at my head. 2 horns are twisted, and the rest of my hair is draped over my shoulders. Don't I look good with a light yellow headband? Isn't it more pleasing to the eye than wearing all kinds of gold and shining stones? Don't tell me that my family doesn't have fist-sized pearls, green mountains, clear water, and blue sky. Isn't purity also beautiful?" Zhao Wuning carefully looked at Xiao Bei and had to nod. He admitted, "It is clearly a very simple outfit, but why does it give people a feeling of luxury? Because it is pure enough. Monotonous doesn't mean boring. A bowl of white rice with a rich rice aroma is more delicious than egg-fried rice. A small round cake made with dried flour is more like a snack than a cake. I have always felt that wild vegetable soup is better than vegetable soup. That faint earthy smell has a different kind of fragrance. Cherish it. The Yellow River has a lot of sand, but it doesn't mean that it is not clean because it is filtered by the sand. If I give you distilled water every day, can you stand it?" These words were said by Xiao Yuan. It sounded very reasonable and made people feel comfortable in their hearts. When it was his turn to brag, he made a koala. Then it was the other children's turn, including Su Yilong. A servant girl also asked for a little pig. She said that her zodiac was pig. Tomorrow was her birthday, so she wanted to put the sugar figurine on the cake. He did not dare to look down on the servant girls. It depended on whose family they were from. The servant girls of the Sanshui, Zhang Wang, and Sanshui were proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, and songs. They could be in the hall, in the kitchen, and in the battlefield. Ordinary families could not hope to marry such a daughter-in-law. They had hundreds of thousands of strings of coins at home. Sorry, don't talk about money. The servant girl's monthly salary was not included. Just the seasonal clothes and face powder cost more than 200 strings of coins a month. That was the purchase price. The production cost of his family was not that high. The most important thing was knowledge. If you took a water-type jade cup or a jade cup to drink at home, you had to consider what the person usually served, glass-type or dragon-type. If she accidentally fell to the ground, she would clean up and change to another set. No one would scold her. If someone had to say that someone was meddlesome, it would definitely be the housekeeper. They would ask her why she was careless. What if she cut herself? Would your family dare to say that they would not scold her after she fell to the ground? Just like Xiao Bei's mother, Jiang Wang clan, and Wang Qiaoer. What did she care about? She and her husband lived in Zhuangzi. Did you think that she would be envious of you if you took out something valuable? What she cared about was very simple. It was her family. Her husband was diligent in his studies, her parents-in-law were harmonious, and her children were sensible and promising. If you wanted to make her lose her composure with a piece of Hangzhou, Suzhou, or Sichuan brocade, it was purely a dream. The servant girls and servants of Zhang Wang's family were the same. They could only find partners internally. They could not go out at all because they could not find a suitable partner. Their status was only low when they served the master at home. When they went out alone, their status was not low at all. When they encountered a quarrel, they had to listen to a word of advice. Not only did they know who their master was, but they also understood their abilities. Their words were even more convincing than the judgment of the Yamen officials. They were selfless and fair. Therefore, no commoner really treated them as servants. For example, the servant girl now wanted a piglet. Was it overboard? As long as it was not overboard, Xiao Bei and the rest did not say anything. Respect and love were in their hearts, not on the surface. At the crucial moment, the servant girl could stand up and block a knife for Xiao Bei and the rest. As long as she did not fall, Xiao Bei and the rest would be fine. It was better than watching the rules and running away when there was danger. I almost forgot. Sister Xiaoling's birthday is tomorrow. She will be born on the 20th of October. It's midnight. Xiao Bei guessed. What midnight? It's 2:45 in the morning. The 5 elements lack wood. After tonight, Let's find a place with a lot of woods to celebrate Sister Xiaoling's birthday. But we can't choose a place with the back of the mountain. It's too dark, and we can't choose a place that welcomes the sun. We have to choose a good place for the sun. Xiao Yuan immediately corrected him. This was the advantage of having a good memory. It made people feel comfortable. Thank you, Miss Bei and the young masters, for remembering me. The servant girl Xiaoling was really touched. Did the master remember the servant's birthday? Yes, but only one or two, and they were the kind that were very important. For example, Li Longji knew Gao Lishi's birthday, and he remembered it very well. The princes and princesses also remembered it. But in the past, Li Longji would not help to celebrate. He would only find a reason to take a day off. Gao Lishi was already very happy. Otherwise, he would not be so loyal. Moreover, because of his loyalty, he had gained the favor of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. He even let Zhang Xiaobao recognize him as his adoptive father. When a person was loyal to such a degree, no one would have the nerve to find fault with him, even if he was a eunuch. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan had both been betrayed before. Otherwise, the two people's information would not have been leaked. That kind of pain was truly unforgettable. And Wang Wan also did not have the information that Zhang Xiaobao had been to prison to learn his skills and change his identity time and time again. Zhang Xiaobao also did not have the ability to escape from Wang Wan's control at the last moment. It was called the seamless way. A skilled butcher dissects an ox, but the person is not an ox. Betrayal and loyalty were really a cycle, pervasive. Who was in heaven? Who was in hell? Therefore, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan liked Gao Lishi because he did not betray. But they always felt that Li Longji had given Gao Lishi too little. You don't even show up for someone's birthday? Well, if you don't show up, we will. Therefore, Li Longji had to show up and follow. In recent years, Gao Lishi's birthday had always been celebrated by 4 people. He, Li Longji, Zhang Xiaobao, and Wang Wan. Zhang Xiaobao would make a very small cake, followed by more than 20 dishes. After the dishes were prepared, the 4 stoves would cook at the same time. In a very short time, the table was filled with dishes. Gao Lishi was an exception. Even the crown prince had to call him Master Gao. There were many servants in the Zhang family and Wang family. Unexpectedly, everyone who followed the team was remembered. Xiaoling knew these things. What moved her was not Xiao Yuan's memory, but Xiao Bei and Xiao Yuan's willingness to remember. She believed that in the team of more than 20,000 people, the young master and the young ladies could remember everyone's birthday. Because there were only 350 days in a year, it was enough to remember the number of days. Xiaoling knew the young master's ability, but the people of Xiaolu village did not. When they heard Xiao Bei and Xiao Yuan directly mention a servant's birthday, they were shocked beyond words. Xiaoling, who had received a birthday gift, ran away happily. Xiao Bei began to carefully ask the old village chief about the situation in the village. The old village chief answered, and the village chief's son helped to fill in the gaps. There were also villagers who interjected from time to time. Everyone lied and cheated. They even revealed that the village had deliberately underreported the rent by 77 do this year. We were too selfish. The harvest was obviously good, but we underreported it just to leave more money for the village's public use. The old village chief spoke. When he faced Xiao Bei, he actually blushed. He really could not lie in front of Xiao Bei's big, watery, and innocent eyes. The people in the village were very nervous. Underreporting? With the benefits of the imperial court, they did not need to spend money on medical treatment, raising children, providing for old age, education, and so on. In the end, they played tricks on the rent money. It was unreasonable. Xiao Bei nodded naturally and said, "It's fine if it's underreported. Actually, our Tang Empire really does not care if you underreported the amount of grain. My brother and sister cherish the grain, and we also do not waste it. It is not that the Tang Empire lacks grain now, but it is not easy to control. We need to find a balance. Of course, more importantly, our family does not have the habit of throwing away large amounts of staple food." Not lacking? No one is starving? The old village chief did not believe it. Xiao Bei was even more unconvinced. He said, "Some people do not have enough to eat, but it is not a problem of grain. It is that they live in a remote area. The normal official road does not pass through. They do not pay rent, not to mention silk and taxes. They open up the mountain to plant some grain. If the year is not good, a flood or a drought will finish them. Usually, they have to wear clothes, eat salt, buy vegetable oil, and plant a few mu of grain. It is not enough for their daily needs. It is even more difficult for children to go to school. They can only see them once a month because they live in school. If not, they will walk for 2 days and come back after 2 days. The villagers deeply agreed. It was indeed as Xiaobei said. Remote areas, especially the mountains, were really poor. They were so poor that people could not bear to look at them. Xiaobei, can't we just build the official road there? A villager suggested. No, definitely not. It is not worth it. There are more than 30 miles of mountain road, and there are a total of 6 families. How can I build the road there? If the money used to build the road was stored in the bank, just a year's interest would be enough for them to live for the rest of their lives. How stupid would the imperial court be to let them build the road? When Xiaobei thought of the 30 miles of mountain road that would be wasted money, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. When the villagers heard this, they all felt that it was really impossible to build the road. It was meaningless. It was better to let the people in the mountains move down. In the past, there were various reasons to avoid the world. War was chaotic, taxes were high, and so on. Now, if they still used this as a reason, it would not be a reason. Because the imperial court would not watch you starve to death after you moved down. For the time being, they would provide you with some money and a place to live. They would help you find work. If you did not know anything, they could even teach you for a few months. If you could still starve to death like this, how lazy would you be? You would even find it tiring to go to the yamen to receive the people? As long as you went, there would be no problem. If you were old and could not work, there would be the pension department to take care of you. If you were disabled, there would be the disability department to take care of you. If you were young, you would quickly go to school. There would be no need to worry about food or clothes. Under such conditions, you deserve to starve to death. It was not that they did not sympathize with you, but they really could not find a reason to sympathize with you. Xiaobei, tell me, how much food does our Tang Empire have in reserve? The old villager was concerned about national affairs. Xiaobei shook his head. I really don't know. They never gave us this number. You don't want me to send a telegram to ask my brother and sister, do you? No, the old villager quickly said. Xiaobei thought for a while and added, anyway, our Tang Empire has a lot of food. In the past, the place in the north, my brother and sister called it the former Turkic Jew, the latter Turkic Jew, etc. Now it belongs to the Tang Empire. There are many cattle, sheep, and horses on the grassland. We can also grow corn and potatoes. In the past, the northern part of Hubei province was directly under the jurisdiction of the Tang Empire. It was not like the first few years. Nominally, it belonged to the Tang Empire, but it never paid rent. Now, my brother and sister are in charge of it. There are many advanced farming equipment in use. For fear of affecting the grain market in other places, they do not dare to sell it. As long as the logistics are normal, no one will starve to death. Even if you don't starve to death, don't waste food. Everyone can save the food and let the merchants bring it overseas to exchange for things. We can't always use force to rob, right? What did they exchange for? Zhao Wening asked Xiaobei, who was more than 2 rounds younger than him, with a modest and studious look. Looking at Xiaobei, he was actually very conflicted. She was obviously a child, but he had to show respect. She was obviously a child, but she knew more things than he did. He had been fighting in his heart. The contempt for Xiaobei's age and the importance of her position were really torturous. Xiaobei could feel that many people looked down on her age, but she didn't care. It was just like others saying that she relied on the power of her family. She admitted that she did rely on the power of her family. Otherwise, who would care about her? Admitting it was one thing, but she would not give up using the power of her family. According to her thoughts, if she used it, then so be it. She did not rely on the power of her family to rob other children of their candies, nor did she force them to buy or sell. Instead, she helped many people. Therefore, Xiaobei could understand Zhao Wening's thoughts and answered, if it were different kinds of ores, my brother and sister would generally draw the approximate range. Especially my brother, he seems to know the distribution of all kinds of resources overseas. Sister once said that the reason why my brother remembered a lot of resources was because his original purpose was not pure. He could use the excuse of the second or third development of resources to deceive people. But I don't think there's anything wrong with deceiving people overseas, right? Zhao Wuning deeply agreed with Xiaobei's words. At this time, he no longer looked down on people younger than him, even if he clearly knew that Xiaobao and Cuckoo were younger than him by more than 20 years. It's good to deceive people, and we should deceive them. It's better than directly attacking them. The people who were deceived should thank our families, Xiaobao, and we should thank Xiaobao even more. Xiaobao didn't use his tricks on us. The price of salt and vegetable oil has always been low. It's all thanks to Xiaobao. The old village held a supportive attitude, and the people in the surrounding villages showed sympathetic expressions. They knew how black-hearted and daring merchants could be, but no matter what the merchants thought, the prices of salt, vegetable oil, rice, wheat, and millet had always been maintained at a very stable level. There was also coarse hemp and fine hemp. Other than salt, the price of other things always increased at twice the rate of income. As for salt, the price of salt had been fixed for 3 years. It didn't decrease or increase. It was 3 copper coins for 2 caddies. It was much cheaper than the salt bought over 10 years ago. No merchant dared to touch the price. Whoever touched it would die, beyond redemption. This was definitely thanks to Xiaobao. When the caravans came over, they said that they weren't afraid of the imperial court's policies. If there were policies, there would be loopholes. They were afraid of touching Xiaobao's bottom line because Xiaobao and they followed the same rules of the game. Jianghu matters were settled in Jianghu. Once Jianghu means were involved, it was bound to be bloody. The merchants didn't dare to fight Xiaobao like this. Therefore, the price of salt had never changed despite the imperial court's decree. This was because Xiaobao had said that the necessities of survival were not allowed to fluctuate. As a result, the price of these things was very stable. The merchants would still ship them over to sell and still make a profit. It could be seen how bad the merchants were in the past. They clearly had profits, but they still wanted to raise the price. Thinking about Xiaobao's matter, a villager asked, "Xiaobei, does Xiaobao and Cuckoo's child have a name?" "He has a nickname, Ming Ming. He hasn't had a real name yet. It will be a cruel battle." When we came out, Ming Ming was a little bigger. He was chubby and fun to play with. "Oh, I remember something. When you secretly dig for coal, you have to be careful. Also, you can use it for yourself, but you can't sell it." When Xiaobei talked about his nephew, his face was full of happiness. Then he changed the topic and talked about stealing coal. The villagers were shocked. Zhao Wuning stuttered and asked, You know? "We know." Brother and sister said that no matter how much coal is shipped back from the outside, where there is coal in the Tang Empire, people will still dig for it themselves. This is because the labor cost of digging a basket of coal is very low, and coal is 0 cost. How can they not dig it out and use it for themselves? Brother and sister also said that places with coal in the open are like their own children. When they are hungry, they can go to the kitchen and secretly get a steamed bun to eat. Don't tell me the adults won't let them? As long as the children don't throw the steamed bun away or sell it, it's fine. If they secretly dig for coal for themselves, they won't be able to finish it even after 1,000 years. Let me tell you, if you have coal in the local area, you can use it for yourself. You are not allowed to open a factory to use it, and you can't sell it for money. Once you do that, your main income will be mining coal. If all the coal in front of your house is dug out, what will your children and grandchildren do? When he said this, Xiaobei's expression became serious. Obviously, he wasn't representing himself. Xiaobao and Cuckoo are so benevolent. The old villager was touched. He swore to the heavens that he would only dig for his own use. He wouldn't give it away or sell it. Xiaobei waved his hand. "Let's not talk about this vexing matter. We brought gifts for you when we came to the village to eat fish. They are books. Books on fish farming in net cages. No matter how many fish there are in the Yellow River, it can't compare to the harvest when you raise them yourself. Before we came, we checked the information. You have a lot of big puddles here. The sewage is discharged into the puddles, and the water content is high. It's just right for fish farming. Dig them out every year and dig out the silt below to use in the fields." "And in that?" Xiao Yuan opened his mouth to say something. "Yes, and the whale meat from the sea. It's marinated, and each family gets 20 caddies. Then, you guys load the coal for us. We want the good kind of coal. If you don't want coal, we can't make coal blocks. There's not enough time. Xiaobei continued. And in yes and Xiaobei, can you let me say it once? Xiao Yuan was very dissatisfied. You say it. I allow you to say it. Say it. Xiaobei agreed. Xiao Yuan's good mood immediately disappeared. It feels like you're giving it to me out of charity. You mean you don't intend to say it? You don't want charity? Then I'll say it. Yes, and there's also dried vegetables. Each family gets 30 caddies. We don't produce that kind of vegetable here. I'll tell you how to make it. You can also figure out how to cook it yourself. Xiao Yuan finally got rid of his addiction of giving things. The villagers were even happier. They knew that the children would prepare things to be given along the way. Otherwise, if they ate along the way, it would really be a waste of money. When Zhao Wuning heard that so many things were given, he was very embarrassed. I've made you guys spend money again. No, it's just the cost of transportation. We didn't spend any money on the things. The merchants who sell the dried vegetables came to us and asked us to help them promote it. Now that you guys have eaten well, in about 10 days, the county town will probably sell it. Xiaobei smiled and explained. It was indeed as she said. When they heard that she was going out, merchants immediately came to give her things and asked her to help promote it to others, especially the merchants in the south. The food in the north and south was different. Without someone to help promote it, it was impossible for both sides to like each other's food. Normally, if Xiaobei and the rest were to help promote it, they would have to be paid. If someone else did it, the effect would definitely not be as good as theirs. However, Xiaobei and the rest didn't earn this money. They treated it as a friendly help. The villagers were very happy. Not only did they see Xiaobei and the rest, but they also received technology and things. Everyone ate fish together. Of course, the large group didn't get a share. There wasn't enough fish in the village. Only a small group of people ate it. The next day, at dawn, the group bade farewell to Xiaolu village and continued forward. After walking for a few more days, when they were about to reaching province, it started to snow. For the time being, there was no wind whistling, nor was there any winter thunder. Snow. It was pure snow. The sky was dark. Even though it was noon, large amounts of snow fell like cotton. The children raised their heads to look. One by one, the black dots gradually became bigger. When they reached out to catch it, they saw that the snow was white. The snow was made up of small snowflakes. If they looked carefully, they could see that most of the small snowflakes had 6 petals. As for those that weren't, it was because they had been damaged when they stuck together. When the snow in her hand melted into water, Xiaobei blinked and said, "It's snowing so heavily. It's going to be troublesome." Chapter 4. It was not that the little fellows had never seen snow before. The snow they encountered in Jili province was not small. But compared to the snow they saw now, the snow at that time was really nothing. What white snowflakes were floating, what 6-petal flowers were dancing in the air. Nonsense, it was all nonsense. The current temperature was the warmest in the past half a month. It gave people a very comfortable feeling, the kind that made them want to sleep. The sky was dark, but it was different from the darkness when there was heavy rain. The darkness during heavy rain was darkness, just like the dark sky. But now it was not. They could still feel some gray, and the blacker color was the snow. It was like a piece of white paper. First, a layer of ink was brushed. Then a brush was dipped in water and lightly painted again. The snow that had formed into a ball was dipped in thick ink again and dotted on the paper. Affected by the air pressure and vision, the little fellows panted a few times and looked at each other. They all knew that there was going to be trouble. Ha! Everyone can make a snowman. Look, it's so sticky. If you have a snowball fight, you don't need to hold it hard. Just gently gather the snow, and it will become a snowball. This is a day full of joy and liveliness, Xiaobei said to the other 8 partners. Little Yuan hurriedly chimed in. Yes, yes. That's great. When the temperature drops a little, and it really starts to get cold, the snow will stick to the vertical wall. Then, with a little wind, the legendary snow wall will appear. What's missing? Missing a slope, it will become a snow slide, Xiaonan added. It will also stick to the roof. When the 4 sides of the house are piled up, We can play slide after slide. It's best if it's at a 45-degree angle. Yes, 45 degrees. If the angle is too big, it will scare people. Xiao Hai did not fall behind. I say. Su Yilong was frightened by the snow in front of her. When she heard Xiao Bei and the others' words, she frowned and asked, "Don't you know what will happen if it snows for 4 hours?" "Only you know?" The 9 little fellows asked in unison. Su Yilong choked. Xiao Bei rolled his eyes at Su Yilong and said, "Just now, we were talking about a possible problem. The viscosity of snow is high. In the early stage, the ground temperature is high and the degree of crystallization of snow is low. In the middle stage, the falling snowflakes and the snowflakes in the air will continue to absorb heat. If this continues, it will get colder and colder, and the wind will blow. Then, the snow on the roof became harder to slide down. When the snow in other places piled up, the force of the wind and the weight of the snow piled up increased. Once the angle between the snow and the ground reached 45 degrees, the snow on the roof would gradually increase in thickness. Therefore, there are 2 outcomes. One is that the house collapses, and the other is that the people are stuck in the house and can't get out. The latter is suffocated to death, and the former is to see if they can be crushed to death, and then hope that they won't suffocate to death. Then, what's that? Temporary tint. Xiao Bei didn't continue talking to Su Yilong, but turned to instruct the people around him. 2 minutes later, a simple tent was set up. There were people supporting it, and no ropes were used to secure it. They were going to leave soon, so it was not worth it to secure it. When the little fellows entered, someone had already prepared a map, so there was no need for instructions. The map was a military map, and the markings were very clear. "Where are we?" Xiao Bei asked. Xiao Zhu looked around and used a pencil to point to a place. "Here. The place closest to us and most likely to be dangerous is here, Kaiguan County, Xiao Yuan." Xiao Yuan rolled his eyes and said as if he was recalling, last year, Kaiguan County sent a statistical report. There were 206 households, 1,492 households, and 65,500 arable land. We don't need to know the arable land and the output. That means that there are 1,500 people in the same situation as us, or the environment is worse than ours. Fortunately, we are next to the river, and the paddy fields around us have already been harvested. There is a lot of yellow mud, so the output is probably not high. At most, we can have 1/3 of the harvest of the paddy fields in Sanshui County, right? Xiao Bei's small hands drew on the map. Xiao Yuan and the others nodded. Xiao Yuan originally wanted to argue and say, "Why don't you let me say the output? Then, you can judge for yourself." But considering that business was more important, there was no time to argue, so he held back. "What do we do?" Danan and Xiao Bei asked at the same time. Xiao Fong held her chin with both hands and stared at the contour lines on the map. Then she said, "Let them come out. We will force our way forward to the yellow riverbank. Look, it is also marked as farmland, and it is a large piece of land. The difference in height is only 6 meters, and the average height is 0.45 meters. It is considered flat land. Okay, we will force our way forward, 20 li. At the same time, send people to Kaiguan County at the fastest speed and let them go. It is also 20 li. If we rush with all our might and take a long detour, half a day should be enough, right? We will first set up the tents and wait for them to come." Xiao Bei made his decision and looked at the others. The 8 little fellows nodded in agreement. "Pass down the order. Prepare in 3 minutes. Assault unit and formation breaker, move out. Light equipment, diagonally to Kaiguan County. Gather the others to the rendezvous point. Over." Xiao Hai gave the final order. Outside, they began to move. The 2 most mobile units began to prepare. They had 3 minutes to pack their bags and tie up their legs. 2 minutes and 47 seconds later, the troops set off. They ran forward. Everyone had a machete. Behind them were simple medicines, axes, ropes, and chisels. They had to walk in a nearly straight line through the rivers, hills, valleys, short withered grass, and thorny bushes that might appear in front of them. According to Xiao Bei's plan, from here to the front was 20 li. From Kaiguan County to the front was also 20 li. The location of Kaiguan County was almost parallel to the rendezvous point, so the difference wasn't too big. The rescue team walked in a roughly diagonal line. From here to Kaiguang County, it was about 30 li. The weight of the two units was less than 10 kilograms. Based on the usual 40 kilometers march of the protection team with 25 kilograms of weight, 1 kilometer was 2 li. On average, they used 4 minutes and 15 seconds to calculate. Including the influence of the terrain, there was no problem for them to advance 1 kilometer in 6 minutes. 1.5 hours to reach the rendezvous point was also under the condition of conserving a certain amount of energy. This speed would make the Tang Empire's other local armies dumbfounded. However, in the eyes of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, it was just a pass. It was impossible to get a better result. The main reason was that there was no satellite navigation. At the same time, it was impossible for there to be so many powerful teams. The entire protection team only had about 600 people. When it was snowing, they would break through 30 li of complicated terrain in an hour. They would also complete the initial tactical deployment and set up a simple position for the follow-up troops. This kind of person had little to do with training. It was talent. The real special forces, such as the Beret Hat, Triangle Prefecture, Alpha, China's Divine Sword, Manchurian Tiger, and a few other elite soldiers in the military region. As for the Snow Leopard, it was just for fun. Compared with the non-elite girls in the women's special forces, it might be equal. However, when it met a female special forces member like Wang Wan, the Snow Leopard was not enough. Xiaobei and the others naturally knew what kind of team they were leading. There were only about 100 of them who could meet the requirements of his brother and sister. However, they were not sent out. It was meaningless. It was not like they were fighting a war to seize an advantageous terrain. Su Yilong was envious. Her family also had their own guards. Not to mention the small number, the individual quality of the guards was not good. Compared with the two camps, the difference was like heaven and earth. Moreover, it was in the basement. Looking at the watch, he smacked his lips and said, "From the preparation to leaving the camp, it took more than 2 minutes and 40 seconds? Yes, it can't be helped. Who would have thought that there would be a special situation? It's a little slow. After all, it's not the most powerful hundreds of people in the family. They worked very hard. No one is perfect, right?" Xiaobei defended the team he sent out in front of Su Yilong. Su Yilong bit her lips and lowered her head. She had nothing to say. It was too shocking. She already knew that the protection team was strong and had followed them for a period of time. However, she had never encountered such an emergency situation. Looking at Xiaobei's embarrassed look, it seemed that the team's reaction was really slow. It was not like this. Xiaobei took out the leggings and went outside the tent. He handed one to Su Yilong and said, "Come, let's tie the leggings too. I don't need to teach you anymore, right?" No, I know what to do." Su Yilong naturally understood. She tied her leggings very seriously, took 2 deep breaths, and prepared to move forward with the team. It took an hour and a half for the team to advance to the gathering point. The main reason was that there were supplies, and there was even a part of the supplies that were slowly catching up behind. Su Yilong, who was panting, felt very fortunate. She walked along the river. Although the road was not very good, it was much better than when she followed them to India. She actually persevered. It was just that her throat was a little itchy, and her face was numb. Looking at Xiaobei and the others, their faces were not good. A 90-minute march of 20 miles was still a lot of pressure for them. It was a kilometer in 9 minutes. It was not running on the asphalt road or the rubber field. It was running with 1 foot and 1 foot, and it was very physically exhausting. If it were the officials in the capital palace, running the same distance in the same time would make them vomit blood. Xiaobei waved to the person who was taking care of her, and the person immediately replied, "Understood, let's set up camp." The group of people began to get busy slowly, and they could be considered to have eased their bodies. The little ones also controlled their breathing and walked around, adjusting their body's circulatory system. No one spoke. After 5 minutes, Xiaobei rubbed her face and said, "I feel like I'm going to explode from panting just now. It's so uncomfortable. My throat is about to lose feeling. It's still numb and cold. Let's use steam to smoke it later." Me too. I almost couldn't help but breathe in oxygen earlier, but I managed to pull through. If I can avoid breathing in oxygen, I won't. Otherwise, my body will become dependent on it, Xiao Yuan said as she gently rubbed her throat. The other 7 little ones were also uncomfortable, especially the feeling of the snow melting on their faces. It was really unforgettable. However, they did not complain, nor did they cry and shout that they did not want to leave. After all, they were the ones who gave the order. Moreover, they had many experiences of hypoxic exercise in the past. Although it was uncomfortable, it would be fine after a while. The first tent was set up, and someone inside boiled water. Xiaobei and the others went in, rubbed their ears and faces, and waited for the water to boil to moisten their throats. The tents were the same. They were round and had a pointed top, similar to the Turkic tents. The difference was the material. The Turkic tents were made of leather, and then felt. Part of Xiaobei's tent was made of chemical materials, part of it was canvas, and part of it was thin and soft leather. Such a combination was light, good quality, and had a strong heat retention. It was also easy to assemble and disassemble. As for why it was not a rectangular tent with a triangular top or a flat top like the military tents from Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's era, it was because they had already considered that the northwest wind was very strong. At the same time, they might encounter snowy weather. Therefore, they used round tents, which had strong wind resistance. Otherwise, if they encountered strong winds, the rectangular tents would either be blown away or crushed. It was not easy to dissipate the force of a large water caltrip building. Many buildings in areas with strong wind and sand were built with large curved tops. It was impossible for people who could build domed buildings not to be able to build buildings of other shapes. It was all experience. Otherwise, unless you lived in a pyramid, such as in Egypt, the reason was because the wind was strong and there was a lot of sand. It was like wrapping one's entire body when wearing clothes. In order to live better, just like how Northerners knew how to make Kong beds, Southerners knew how to use hammocks. Before Xiaobei and the others set out, they had already considered everything. The economic development of the various places along the way, what to plant and breed in the latitude, how to deal with unexpected situations, what to exchange for the things they ate from other people's villages. They had considered all the details, including things that were not planned. For example, Xiaobei had given them 2 sets of hand-cranked heaters to generate electricity. While the little guy was doing the construction work, the assault battalion and the formation breaker had also arrived at Kagwang County. Kagwang County did not have tall city walls. There was only a circle of outer city walls, made of yellow mud. It was probably built before and had not been maintained. The snow had not been falling for long. The short city walls were not completely covered. Withered yellow weeds could be seen on the walls, bent to the side by the wind. Most of the buildings in the county were made of the same materials as the city walls. Yellow mud mixed with hemp and grass piled up. When it reached the roof, it would become beams. There were not many buildings with tiles. Most of the buildings were made of yellow mud mixed with weeds. There were also some people who were lazy. They directly dug out a hole under a small mound. Inside, they built into a cave-like house. Outside, they used a fence to enclose an area, which was considered a courtyard. Every house and every household was separated by a certain distance. There was a path between the courtyards. Those who raised pigs and sheep had pens, those who raised chickens had cages, those who raised cows had cages, those who raised horses had stables, those who raised horses had stables, those who raised horses had stables, and those who raised donkeys randomly found a barn. Accompanied by the sound of dogs barking one after another, the people in the county immediately understood that outsiders had come. If it was the people of the county, the dogs would not bark in groups during the day. The county magistrate of Kagwang County was a local. Normally, the court did not allow local people to govern the county. However, Kagwang County was an exception. The population was really too small. If it was in the past, it was still okay. There were about 1,500 people, which was not much less than other counties. However, there were not so many people in Kagwang County 10 years ago. It was not easy to wait for the children to grow up and give birth to more children. When the population was about the same, there were more people in other places. Thus, Kagwang County was still a county below. The county magistrate was naturally a secondary 8 rank. His rank was not even as high as Lu Fei Fei of Old Willow Village in Hongnong County. The roads were not easy to travel. The people were relatively poor. Other than coal, there were no other special products that could make a name for themselves. When doing things locally, the people's feelings were more than the law. Things like theft and robbery did not exist. Who would be willing to be an official in such a county? Everyone was afraid that they would not be able to avoid it. 20 years ago, Sun Mao, who was in his 30s, went to the state's examination. He easily became a juror. He remembered that he only answered one question and did not know whether it was right or wrong. On the day that he became a juror, he became the county magistrate of Kagwang County. The Ministry of Personnel evaluated him every year and gave him good results. However, they did not allow him to change his position. He had been the county magistrate for 20 years. His subordinates were the children of a few families. They were considered as bailiffs. He did not have the position of a registrar. Sun Mao gradually understood the intentions of the imperial court. They did not send people over. The locals would govern the locals. It was fine as long as they did not cause trouble for the imperial court. After the evaluation every year, there would be merchants passing by who would bring gifts from the imperial court. More than 10 years ago, Sun Mao would occasionally go to the state capital to ask for gifts. He also wanted to develop the county and let the villagers live a good life. However, the officials of the state capital wrangled with each other. They would praise him and give him a few strings of money. Every official of the state capital was very warm to him. They had many words of encouragement. They meant that they believed that he could be a good county magistrate and lead the people of the county to a happy future. He could overcome all difficulties and make Kagwang County prosperous. 6 years ago, life in the Tang dynasty was gradually getting better. Sun Mao was completely enlightened. He no longer asked for charity. He planned to be a good county magistrate and find a way out. He could not continue to be poor. He had so much authority in the county and had to show his worth. Hence, he ran to the state capital telegraph office and sent a telegram to the capital. He hoped that there would be someone powerful who could come up with an idea for him. In the telegram, he emphasized his authority in the county. He meant that no matter what the person who came up with the idea said, the county would definitely carry it out. While he was at it, he also asked for 10 strings of money from the state capital, as well as a lot of low-quality 4 treasures of the study. When he returned to the county, he had someone build a room for him to teach the children in Qi County, even though he himself did not know much. He planned to train a few educated children to go out and make a living. When they had the ability, they would come back to help the county. He wanted to let the officials who knew that he sent a telegram to the capital to ask for help know that the people of Kagwang County did not lack integrity. However, just as he planned to train a few children, in the spring of the second year, a 2-story restaurant opened in the county. It was called Between the Clouds and the Water. When the restaurant opened, 6 waiters and 2 chefs lined up neatly in front of the restaurant. At that moment, Sun Mao and the people of the county felt that the dark clouds in the sky had dispersed. Since the day the restaurant opened, it hadn't sold a single dish or a single bowl of wine. The waiters took turns to teach the children in the county. The chefs ran around the county, bringing in seeds from the outside. They bought lambs, piglets, chickens, ducks and geese seedlings, and cattle. They began to teach the locals how to raise livestock and how to increase the yield of the land. Kagwang County still gave the outsiders the impression that it was poor. It was still an inferior county. Only the people of the county knew that when spring came next year, the county would start to send large amounts of meat to the outside world. The 50-year-old Sun Mao felt like he was 30 years old. His whole body was full of energy. Once he sold the livestock and poultry that he had raised for 5 years, the county would have money. Then he would help Between the Clouds and the Water create an ethereal design for the people outside to spend money in the county. The idea was good, but when it started to snow today, Sun Mao looked at the sky and was dumbfounded. He thought back to a snowstorm in his childhood. At that time, it was similar to the one in front of him. It snowed for a day and a night. The houses collapsed, and there were endless cries. All the animals that he raised froze to death. His grandfather and uncle had died in that snowstorm. The survivors dug up corpses and things in the snow, starving and freezing for an entire winter. Mauer, hurry up and think of a solution. These old bastards have finally realized that this snow won't stop for at least 2 or 3 days. A few of the county's elders came over and said to Sun Mao, who was standing in the snow in a daze, Sun Mao's face was blank. His mouth was wide open, but he couldn't make a sound. His withered hands were covered in blue veins and trembling. The wind was blowing. His ears were filled with the howling of the wind and the laughter of children who didn't know what disaster was. After half a minute, Sun Mao shouted hoarsely, "God, you can't bear to see us do well. We just had a little bit of hope, and now you're pushing us to our deaths. Who will help us? Who will help us?" Mao, don't panic. Let's talk to the people between the clouds and the water. God won't be happy if we talk to them. Don't be afraid. We're not afraid. Let's talk to the people between the clouds and the water. Find Xiaobao and Cuckoo. The old man's voice trembled as he tried to persuade Sun Mao. His eyes were filled with sadness and a glimmer of hope. The other old men nodded in agreement. Faced with such a natural disaster, they really couldn't think of any other solution. They could only pin their last hope on the 8 people between the clouds and the water, as well as Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, who were far away in the capital. When Sun Mao and the old men found the workers and cooks, the 8 people were organizing the people in the county to gather supplies and livestock. They planned to gather them together so that they could be easily used when the snow was over. No one cared about the noisy children for the time being. They had to first decide whose houses were sturdy enough to stay and while the less sturdy ones would be torn down as soon as possible so that they could take out anything that could be used to keep them warm. When a worker saw Sun Mao, he immediately approached him and said anxiously, "County Magistrate Sun, the snow is very heavy. You have to lead everyone through it. I believe that the capital will soon know of the situation here and send out a disaster relief team." How soon? When Sun Mao lacked confidence, he had no choice but to place his hopes on disaster relief. The Great Tang had always been the fastest in terms of disaster relief, but there was always a time limit. If they could rush over in 3 to 5 days, it would be considered a miracle, unless the worker also understood. Around 10 days? Half a month? Unless the Fengzhou eagle flock moves out, but we don't know where Shuiyun is. There are only 8 of us, and we're not emergency personnel, so we can't bring radios. The worker was also very helpless. Who would have thought that they would encounter such a situation? Moreover, they couldn't go out. If they wanted to survive the disaster with the locals, it would be best if they didn't get buried in the snow. Houses were usually built at the mouth of a valley or at the foot of a flat mountain. Because of the water source, there were many mosquitoes and wild beasts on the mountain. If the snow didn't stop, the lower the terrain, the thicker the snow would be. "Can we run out?" Sun Mao asked without even thinking. After saying this, he sighed and said, "No. Where can we run to? We don't even have a place to stay. Look at the sky and listen to the wind. Who can turn the tide? Xiaobao, Cuckoo, where are you? I can't accept this. I can't accept this." Sun Mao shouted at the top of his lungs. The surroundings instantly quieted down. The children also realized that something was wrong. None of them dared to move, and the adults were silent. The worker pursed his lips and 2 streams of hot tears flowed down. 5 years of hard work and hope were about to be destroyed in a day. What followed was the struggle for life before rescue arrived. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. While the people in the county were quiet, a low sound like a drum suppressed the whistling of the wind and snow. It came from the southeast of the county, and the ground seemed to be trembling. What's that sound?" a child asked in fear. The people in the county looked over, confused and worried. The worker was stunned. He blinked and shouted, "Footsteps, it's footsteps." The sound of an army running forward. "Quick, go and take a look. Where did the army come from?" After saying this, he took the lead and ran outside. A group of people followed behind him noisily. When they stood at the entrance of the outermost house, they saw a huge army appear from the southeast of the city. The army rose and fell with the changes in the terrain, but the sound of their footsteps was not chaotic at all. The people in the army wore mottled green and yellow clothes. They wore leather boots, and their arms were retracted flat. Their right hand held a machete, and they swung it lightly with their footsteps. "Stand still." Boom, 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 accompanied by a loud shout. All the movements stopped, and the huge army moved forward as one. A big flag stood in the middle of the army, flying with the snow. On it, there were 9 cute rice seedlings holding hands and surrounding a fire. Two slightly smaller flags stood on the left and right. One of them had the word sharp written on it, and the other had the word trap written on it. The people on both sides looked at each other in a daze. The people in the protection team were surprised that the people in the county had gathered to welcome them when they had just arrived. The people in the county were in a daze with different thoughts. They were just talking about who could come and help, and in the blink of an eye, there were people coming. What a big army, what a neat army, and what a familiar flag. Both sides looked at each other for a while. Just when the people in the army were about to stand out, the county magistrate Sun Mao knelt down first and kowtowed in the direction of the capital. He cried and shouted, "Xiao Bao, cuckoo, you really did not let us down." Then he remembered a poem that Wang Wan had copied for people to learn. He shouted again, "Who can turn the tide? Heaven is about to fall. We must rely on it." Hey, County Magistrate Sun, County Magistrate Sun, you're wrong. It's not young Master Xiao Bao's army, it's Xiao Bei and Xiao Yuan's. The shop assistant went forward and pulled Sun Mao up by his arm and whispered in his ear, "Ha ha, ha 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 ha, we're saved, we're saved. The protection team is here. Clan relatives, look, it's the protection team. Aya, God, fuck your mother, you're a grandson. Ha ha ha, grandson." Sun Mao could not get up. He knelt there and shouted, almost going crazy. The snow was still falling, but the people in Kagwang County did not have the previous worry on their faces. They did not even think about it. What was the use of a group of soldiers when it was snowing? Could it stop the snow from falling? They naively thought that as long as the protection team came, it would be safe. The formation of 2,000 people looked like it was made of steel to the people. The children smiled again, and the sky seemed to be bright and sunny. "Be at ease," someone in the group shouted, and the group neatly stood with their legs apart. A person walked out from the group. Every step was sonorous and powerful, and the snow squeaked under his feet. He walked until he was in front of County Magistrate Sun Mao. Just as he was about to speak, the shop assistant supporting Sun Mao spoke first. "I'm Zhang Yibin, the supervisor of the construction of Kagwang County." He's County Magistrate Sun Mao. "Hello, Wang Shuqian, the commander of Assault Unit 2. Prepare to evacuate immediately. The main force is waiting by the Yellow River 20 miles away." The person who called himself Wang Shuqian saw that Sun Mao's emotions were unstable, so he said this to Zhang Yibin. He believed that Zhang Yibin could command the local people. Sun Mao thought differently from Wang Shuqian. He felt that he was very calm and said, "It's already prepared. We'll take the animals with us, but the poultry, take them with us." Wang Shuqian looked at the sky and the snow on the ground and ordered decisively. The people of Kagwang County listened and watched from the side. No one interrupted. They only felt warmth in their hearts. Even if the sky fell, they would not be afraid. With the appearance and addition of the protection team, the packing speed was very fast. The food at home was packed, the new clothes and bedding were packed, and the old things that were not of much value were left behind. They would come back when the snow stopped. The beams of the houses were abandoned. The firewood was tied into bundles for people to carry or put on the backs of animals. The poultry were released. The heads of the poultry were tied up with ropes and led forward. Occasionally, someone would coax them, and the poultry would line up by themselves. The sheep could follow orders, but the pigs were the most troublesome. They always ran around, whining and growling for a while before they could return to the line. Leaving one's hometown to run for one's life was a sad thing, but the people of Kagwang County were full of excitement. The children's faces were red from the cold. They were still playing on the road, and snowballs were flying everywhere. The speed of the line was very slow, especially the poultry. There were too many of them. Occasionally, some would fall into a hole that was filled with snow, and people would go over to help pull them out. There were also chickens that ran out of the line when people were not paying attention. They did not need to care about them. After a while, they would naturally return when they saw that there was no one to organize them. In comparison, the ducks were much better. They were more organized and stood in a line one by one. There were also dogs that left home with their owners. They ran around the front and back of the line, sniffing left and right. It did not look like they were running for their lives. They were holding a large-scale traveling activity. It was very cheerful, very lively, and very warm. Therefore, The line only reached the Yellow River after 4:00 in the afternoon. At this time, the snow was already a foot and a half thick. It was already dark early at this time, and because of the weather, the camp was brightly lit. There were more than 30 diesel generators roaring. Someone was adding silencers. Xiao Bei and the others started to sleep after the first tent was set up. They knew that the task of welcoming them was the most difficult. Especially the children of Kagwang County, they needed someone to play with them. The people of Kagwang County saw the lights from afar and began to speed up. No one cared if the poultry got lost on the road. Most of them just followed. When they got closer, the people noticed that there was a soldier standing a dozen steps away. He was wearing very nice clothes. There were red, green, and orange. The wind whistled and the snow fluttered. The soldier standing guard did not move at all. He was like a pillar. When they got closer, they saw the snow hitting the soldier's face. The soldier just blinked and did not wipe it away. The people felt their hearts ache when they saw this. Sun Mao went forward and reached out his hand. He shivered and wiped the soldier's face. He asked, "Child, are you cold?" "It's okay," the soldier replied. He held his gun with both hands. He was still standing straight. "I have to talk to Xiao Bei. This is too torturous. Why are you standing guard in such a snowy day? How can there be enemies?" Sun Mao said in his heart. Just as he finished speaking, a child from the county ran to a place further away and tripped. The thing that tripped him got up and patted the snow off him. He then went back to work and hid in the snow again. Sun Mao asked in shock, "Is that a person?" "Yes, a hidden sentry." The person who answered him was Xiao Bei. Xiao Bei had just been woken up and came over rubbing his eyes. An old man from the county hurried forward and looked at Xiao Bei carefully. He said unhappily, "Xiao Bei, why are you torturing them? You're standing guard and hidden sentry. Aren't you cold? It makes one's heart ache. Just for a while. They take turns every hour. They just have to hold on for a while. Normally, it takes 2 hours. I saw that there were enough people, so it only took an hour. Heartache? If they stand or lie down, you'll feel heartache. If they randomly find a place to make a noise and drink, you'll feel your heart palpitate. You'll think, is this the trump card of the Tang Empire?" Xiao Bei argued and retorted. Xiao Yuan chimed in, "That's right. The Tang Empire is strong and forged with iron and blood. If the protection team was a little weaker, would you be able to escape so peacefully?" The commoners thought about it and felt that it was true. Why were they not worried when they saw the protection team in the county? It was because they knew that the protection team was the strongest team in the Tang Empire. It was a kind of pride that went deep into their bones. "Sister Xiao Bei, Brother Xiao Yuan, it's so good to see you. When I was in the county, I was scared. Seeing you guys, I know that we're safe." A little girl of 6 or 7 years old ran over and shouted happily to Xiao Bei and the rest. Xiao Bei smiled brightly and reached out to cover the little girl's face. He said, "We're safe. We're safe. Our team has more than 20,000 people. Look, they're all tents. No matter how heavy the snow is outside, once you enter the tents, it's comfortable and warm." "Yes, yes. Sister Xiao Bei, why are their clothes so colorful?" The little girl's eyes turned into crescent moons as she asked. "Because it's not a war. It's very eye-catching and gives people a warm feeling. If it's a war, they'll all change to white. Did you see the hidden sentry just now? White clothes, white pants, white boots, white hats, white gloves, white masks, and white goggles. Even during the day, if they lie there and don't move, you won't know that they're people. Even their guns are wrapped in white cloth." Xiao Bei kept talking and pulled the little girl's hand into the tent. At the same time, he ordered, "Send a report to Yin Province and ask them to transfer to the capital. Tell them that Kagwang County has been settled properly and there's no need to worry." The other commoners were arranged to stay in the tents. They also brought livestock and poultry. Compared to the entire team of 20,000 people, their 1,500 people were really nothing. Everything was in order, and there were no unexpected situations. There were more children in the county. There were 360 children, which was close to a quarter of the total population. They were taken care of by Xiao Bei and the rest. One tent could not fit all of them. Someone modified it under the light. The modification method was to redistribute the brackets of the 20 tents. After that, canvas was laid on top of the entire tent. The main bracket in the middle was raised, forming a large slope outside. It was still a pointed round tent. There was no problem for a few hundred children to stay inside and eat. There was still a lot of space left. Sun Mao strolled over and was surprised to see such a assembled tent. He muttered, "It's amazing. There are even things that can talk to each other from far away." Of course it's amazing. Su Yilong, who was also strolling over and watching, heard Sun Mao's words and replied, "The thing that can talk is the legendary telephone?" Sun Mao asked as he pointed to the thing on the back of the person in the group of 100 or so people doing things in the way they talked. Su Yilong shook her head. "That's called a walkie-talkie. It can be listened to from a distance. In normal weather, it can reach up to 2 kilometers. Now, it's estimated that it's only a little more than 1 kilometer. Walkie-talkie? I've never heard of it." Sun Mao was even more curious. "Hee, there are many things that you haven't heard of. Back then, the former Minister of Revenue, Bai Go, once said that if you want to know the most advanced technology of the Tang Empire, don't go to the Ministry of Works. Just keep an eye on Xiaobei and the others." The Sanshui Zhang family and Wang family put all the most advanced technology on the children. The tools used by Xiaobei's team are basically modular. There are strong fog lamps and backpack wireless voice communication walkie-talkies. Do you see the 2 big things placed in conspicuous places? That's called a small-tracked hydraulic bridge-laying vehicle. There are only 2 finished products in the entire Tang Empire. They are both here. Su Yilong introduced. "Why don't you make a large one?" Sun Mao was very thoughtful. Su Yilong was stunned and looked at him with admiration. She said, "Because the technology is not enough. It's similar to building a house. It's easy to build a 3-story one, but try to build a 30-story one. The bridge-laying vehicle now can be thrown to any country to study without fear of leaking secrets. They can't figure it out at all." "Oh." Sun Mao expressed his understanding and suddenly asked, "What's the bridge-laying vehicle used for?" "It's used as a bridge. When it encounters rivers and valleys that are not very wide, it will expand into a bridge. It's 5-7 meters long. When building the bridge, it will first put down the folded bridge. When the team goes over, it will be the last to go over. Then, the bridge will be put away. However, the things that go over cannot be too heavy." Xiaobei said that it's a problem with the power system and the material of the bridge deck. However, it's already very powerful now. The main purpose is to let the small bulldozer and assembled lifting equipment go over. Look at the things that are being assembled now. There are 4 steel observation towers. They are 12 meters tall. It's fast to assemble and convenient to dismantle. Su Yilong continued to explain. Sun Mao smacked his lips. "All the good things are used by Xiaobei and the others?" "Yes. At the same time, we can check the shortcomings of the tools. There are also many small tools. The technical content is not low. How do you feel?" "I feel that the seedling protection team is really strong. My heart is more at ease." Sun Mao answered. "No other thoughts? For example, the prosperity of the Tang Empire's technology?" Su Yilong asked again. "I know, but it has nothing to do with the lives of ordinary people. What hydraulic pressure? Don't we have to take it away after building the bridge? Can it be built on the Yellow River?" Sun Mao was very honest. He said whatever he wanted to say. Su Yilong was defeated. She nodded, sighed, and said, "I'll go somewhere else. The snow hasn't stopped yet." With that, she left. Sun Mao rubbed his face and muttered, "With the seedling protection team, the snow will fall as much as we want. I'm not afraid. What can we eat tonight?" As the preparations for the night were rushed, there were naturally no stir-fried dishes. The team was very tired from rushing and building the camp. At night, they ate the simplest hot pot. It took a little more effort than stew, but it was not much worse. The 360 children first took a hot bath and changed their clothes. After sitting down again, they felt much more refreshed. It was even more comfortable than at home. The older children took care of the younger children. Those who needed milk were sent to their mothers. There were also maids watching by the side. "Don't get too hot." Including Su Yilong, Xiaobei, and the others carried dipping sauces in their hands and walked from table to table. They said a few words, ate 2 mouthfuls of food, and continued at another table. Sister Xiaobei, I find that the food you make is really delicious. A 5 or 6-year-old boy stuffed something in his mouth and said to Xiaobei in a muffled voice. Xiaobei put something on the plate and replied, I also found out that you eat more when it's delicious. Don't eat too much. Don't be afraid if you eat less. If you're hungry in the middle of the night, you can get up and continue eating. There's enough for you. Sister Xiaobei, I know it's not good to eat too much, but I just want to eat. The little boy was very honest. Xiaobei frowned at Wei Wei. Her long eyelashes blinked twice and said, Do you know what soup is in the hot pot? Water. Several children nearby answered together, No, right? Can water be so delicious? Our family's hot pot is chicken soup. First, it's boiled and then hung. It looks very clear, but it has a very fragrant chicken leg taste. Then, there's the beef bones. The bone marrow in the bones is all in the soup. If you don't believe me, you can taste it. Xiaobei scooped some soup for the little boy. The little boy put it to his mouth and blew on it. He sucked it in and nodded vigorously. It's really delicious. I've never drunk such a good soup. And there's also that thing called nutrition. It's good for your body and makes you strong. Xiaobei continued. Thus, every child began to drink the soup from a small bowl. The maids added more to the pot from time to time. The soup was indeed chicken soup, but Xiaobei's goal was achieved. After drinking the soup, the children's stomachs took up a lot of space. Even if they ate until they were full, it would be easy to digest. The children didn't know that Xiaobei was playing tricks on them. After eating their fill, they became sleepy and rearranged their tents to sleep. Many children lay in their blankets and couldn't fall asleep. It wasn't that they weren't sleepy, but that they couldn't bear to sleep. The wind was still blowing outside the tents. Every 2 minutes, people on patrol would pass by. The lights imprinted their shadows on the tents and could be seen from inside the tents. Many children lay down for a while and were about to fall asleep. When they heard footsteps, they opened their eyes and looked at the shadows on the tents. They smiled and enjoyed the sense of security at this moment. It was as if they weren't afraid of anything. It wasn't until they were too sleepy and couldn't open their eyes that they fell asleep. The next morning, when Xiaobei and the others had just woken up, someone came to report that the telegram had been cut off since midnight. They didn't receive a reply when they inquired about the general situation in Yinzhou. For some reason, it could be that all the telegrams in the telegram office were broken. It could also be that they were affected by the weather or natural magnetic field interference. It's fine. The snow hasn't stopped yet. Continue clearing the snow in the camp. Anyway, the telegram has already been sent. I believe that the capital has already received the news. Don't wake the children up yet. Let them sleep for a while. I'll go outside and take a look. Xiaobei thought about it. It wasn't a big deal. The team had enough supplies, and they wouldn't lack food and drink for the next month. She wasn't in a hurry, and the capital wasn't in a hurry either. The telegram that came last night was intercepted by Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. They didn't send it to Li Longji immediately because they didn't want to wake him up. There was a court meeting on the 5th day of the new year. When they were about to go to court, the sun was already high up in the sky. Only then did they remember that there was a telegram last night and ordered someone to send it to the court. Chapter 5. Compared to the situation that Xiaobei and the others encountered, the weather in the capital was much better. Only yesterday afternoon, there had been 3 hours of light snow, the kind that melted as soon as it landed on the ground. Today's court meeting was originally planned to be held in the political announcement hall. The Hanyuan Hall was too big, and there was no shelter when the wind blew. However, the political announcement hall was building a geothermal system. Yes, geothermal. To be precise, it was building pipes and adding a layer of floor tiles on top. The cost was huge, and Li Longji paid for it himself. The construction progress was estimated to take at least a month. Building pipes, laying floor tiles, and waterproofing. If the results were good, the next step would be to dig trenches in the capital in the spring, lay gas pipes, electric cables, heating pipes, and expand the water distribution system. As for the optical cable, well, that was a beautiful dream. Li Longji didn't want to be extravagant again. Ever since he renovated the palace, he had become more simple. In the past, when he had no money, he always wanted to make his life more comfortable. He fought with the other officials for the surplus revenue, including how to use the internal funds. When he found that he had endless money, Li Longji didn't want to tear down and rebuild a palace, and then tear it down again. His meals were simple, and there were only 3 or 4 dishes. Occasionally, he would make vegan dumplings. The sudden spending of money was because the recent domestic economy made him worried. He had to prepare in advance. As for the specific solution, it was better to discuss it in the court. Thus, today's meeting was still held in the Hanyuan Hall. There was heating here, a heater installed a few years ago. When the time came, the officials lined up with empty stomachs. No one secretly brought food, and they waited for the court to end to eat the food provided by the palace. Everyone found their own place and stood. Li Longji looked at the morning scenery as he strolled over. The carriage swayed a lot. According to him, it was dizziness. The officials were surprised at first, but then they expressed that regardless of whether others believed it or not, they believed it. They came in the first batch of gasoline-powered carriages in the Great Tang. The shock absorption was much better than palanquins and carriages. It was also faster, and the vibration of the diesel engine was not light. Li Longji sat down first. Gao Lishir placed the microphone and tested it. Hey. The quality of the sound was good, so he retreated to the side. Everyone, please sit. Li Longji raised his hand. Thank you, Your Majesty. Everyone turned around and sat down behind the table. They took out their notebooks and pens and prepared to record the contents of the meeting. Li Longji also took out a book and flipped it open. His gaze landed on Minister of Revenue Wang Bei's face and said, Today, we'll talk about the domestic economy first, Minister Wang. Wang Bei moved the microphone in front of him, pondered for a moment, and said, The data collected last month shows that the prices in most areas of the country have dropped significantly recently. The price of a well-woven third-class silk was 140 copper coins per piece in the middle of June, but it dropped to 132 copper coins last month. The average price of a pig in Hunan province in June was 5 copper coins per catty, but it dropped to 8 copper coins last month. The average price of bamboo in June was 915 copper coins per square meter, but it was 876 copper coins last month, and so on. Wang He paused for a moment. The officials were all silent and had different expressions. He continued, Other than table salt, the prices of other goods have decreased. That is to say, we can buy more things with less money. The lives of the people are better now. Haha. He laughed, but the others didn't because it wasn't a joke. For a moment, the imperial court fell silent. After half a minute, Li Longji said, That's the situation. All of you know that the development of the economy has always been to control the rate of inflation, which is the rate at which the currency depreciates. Now, there's no need to worry about this. The currency has appreciated. Are you all happy? We are truly too amazing. The people are able to buy things at a cheap price. No one was happy. If it was 30 years ago, perhaps some people would foolishly think that this was a good thing. Counting back, there had never been a dynasty that had achieved such results. However, the officials now had learned a lot of political and economic knowledge. Whether the increase in the consumer price index was positive or negative, it would inevitably reflect the correctness of the country's macro and microeconomic regulation. It was especially important to see whether the goal and result were the same. The ability to buy a unit of currency was equally important, whether it was a large amount or a small amount. The officials weren't looking forward to the current negative inflation. This wasn't in line with the current economic development. The savings and lending rates of the Great Tang Bank weren't negative. Then where did the problem lie? Was the Great Tang currency too little? Was the interest rate of the national debt too high? Was the consumption concept of the people changing? Or was the supply really exceeding the demand? Yuan Qinyao coughed, reminding everyone that he had something to say. He held the microphone and said, I think that the investment in technology has increased the production of the original basic materials, thus reducing the cost of processing and sales. However, the cost of labor didn't change. That's why there are such figures. I don't think so. Yu Wenrong replied impolitely. I think that the investment in technology has always been right, especially in the aspect of grain, oil, plants, and livestock. In the past, the consumption of grain was huge, but now, the consumption is small. It can't be said that the population of the Great Tang has decreased. It's just that people have more choices when they need nutrients. The cost of processing isn't low, but there's also the cost of labor. The more advanced the technology, the higher the cost of labor. Correspondingly, the cost of sales hasn't decreased. There's definitely advertising and sales, and the cost has always been on the rise. This can be seen from the profits of various newspapers. Then, what's the reason why the figures for the past 2 months don't match our expectations? It still needs to be researched. Your Majesty, I've finished. Yuan Qianyao stared angrily and cursed in his heart. What did you say? You've analyzed so much, and you still need to be researched? Everyone wanted to know the reason and the solution. Yuan Rong avoided his gaze and said embarrassedly, Prime Minister Yuan, don't look at me like that. I'll be shy. Ha ha ha. Li Longji laughed. The other officials also couldn't help but laugh. Even the usually serious Zhang Zhong's lips curled up. Everyone was very happy, and no one was worried about the data. The so-called worry was that they couldn't think of a solution. However, they didn't panic. This was because there were 2 people who were qualified to attend court but couldn't because of Zhang Zhong's existence. They were taking care of their children in the capital. If they really couldn't think of a solution, they could only trouble the couple. The problem was very serious. The worry was caused by themselves, but they weren't at the end of the road yet. They believed that if those 2 people spoke up, everything would return to normal. Don't be like this, okay? She's clearly still young and is probably sleeping. Do I have to call her parents over? Be careful that she doesn't run to your house to cry. Li Longji held back his laughter. The people below laughed again. Morning court was a very happy thing. As long as it wasn't a disaster that killed people, everyone came to court with a happy mood. In any case, if the problem could be solved, they would solve it directly. If they couldn't, they would push it to Xiaobao and Cuckoo. Then, they would learn from them, who asked the 2 of them to always be so calm no matter what situation they faced. It was as if any problem wasn't a problem to them. Yongcheng, you say something. Don't tell me that you don't visit your grandson on a daily basis. Don't tell me that you only visit your grandson and don't ask any questions. Li Longji looked at Zhang Zhong and said. Zhang Zhong had always abided by the etiquette between a ruler and a subject. When he heard the voice, he immediately stood up and replied respectfully, Yes, I'll say it. Regarding the domestic economy, let's talk about Mingming first. Li Longji interrupted Zhang Zhong. Zhang Zhong's serious expression immediately turned into one of happiness. He changed from the cold and strict face of the Minister of Works to the face of a kind grandfather. He looked at Li Longji gratefully and replied, The little guy can already sit up. Occasionally, he can even crawl a few steps. He rarely cries. Even if he cries, it's for a short period of time. Usually, it's because he pees or is hungry. Every day, he cries for less than a quarter of an hour. He likes to laugh and laughs at everyone he sees. When he catches a toy, he can play with it for a long time. Xiaobao and Cuckoo have also turned into children. A small ball can actually play with Ming Ming for an hour and even crawl everywhere with him. There's no bed in the house anymore. The floor and the carpet are all crawling. Last night, I also crawled over to talk to Ming Ming. My legs hurt. Ha 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 ha. Li Longji laughed again. He was very happy. Jiang Xin immediately took the opportunity to speak. Yongcheng, my little granddaughter is 4 months older than Ming Ming. She can crawl better. Why don't we send her over to play? My granddaughter is virtuous and polite, dignified and generous, graceful and charming. When she grows up, she'll definitely have a daughter. What do you think? Cough cough. Official Jiang, there's no need to talk about family matters in court. Li Longji interrupted Jiang Xin's words and told him not to talk about family matters. Everyone was in court. He said, although Pan is a little older, her age shouldn't be determined by age. Her age shouldn't be determined by, Your Majesty, regarding the recent increase in the value of the currency, I have something to say. At this moment, the person who appeared was actually Li Linfu. After he finished speaking, he immediately looked at Zhang Zhong and said, Brother Yongcheng, you and I have known each other for almost 10 years. After spring and autumn, we've seen winter come. The snow is as white as a rabbit. It's said that a white rabbit walks to the east and looks to the west. Clothes are not as good as new. People are not as good as old. Brother Yongcheng, we know each other. My little girl. Minister Zhang, let's talk about economic matters first. Wang Bei interrupted with a cold face. He shook the book in his hand and said to Zhang Zhong, "After work, I hope you can bring your family to my residence for a chat. We can discuss financial matters and other matters. State matters are important." While the officials and Li Longji were inwardly cursing Wang Bei for being shameless, Zhang Zhong finally had time to speak. Let me think. Just now, everything was in a mess. I actually forgot what I wanted to say." Zhang Zhong was speechless. How old was his grandson? Unexpectedly, others were fighting to reserve him. After thinking for a few seconds, Zhang Zhong finally found his train of thought. He said, "The technology released by the Ministry of Works and the Agricultural Temple has always been basic industry technology. To put it bluntly, it is to increase agricultural production and initial processing technology. It directly affects the people's livelihood. As a result, grain production has increased, and the initial processing efficiency of the handicraft industry has increased. This year is the right time to show the results. The influence of the Ministry of Works and the Agricultural Temple has met, resulting in a seemingly temporary decrease in cost. I have already thought of this point. However, since it has decreased, the amount of trade must have increased. Why has the tax not increased?" Li Longji asked. "The tax has increased, but it has not entered the statistical period yet. It can only be seen at the end of the year. The tax has not increased because it is not reported. The local finance suppresses the tax for a few months, and the profits go to the local government. Therefore, the tax is simple. It is human nature." Zhang Zhong replied. What he meant was that there was only the tax and no one supervised it. People collected the money and waited to report it at the end of the year. This way, the money could be used for other things for a few months, and the profits would become the local government's additional income. When Zhang Zhong said this, he did not have any intention of attacking the local yamen. The yamen had more money, and it was additional income. It looked dangerous, but it was actually not a big problem. Many yamen would show this part of the money. The commoners could see and know that the yamen had an additional income. This money did not belong to the imperial court and could be used freely. Therefore, in the future, when the money was spent, the commoners would be involved. As for hiding it from the commoners and then embezzling it, Zhang Zhong did not believe it. If they did that, the cost and benefits would not be proportional. It would not be as much as the rewards after the official finished his term. Furthermore, once he was found out, he would lose everything, including his life. Li Longji nodded. He was very satisfied with the current governance. The investigation was strict, and the reporting system had been perfected. The cost of malfeasance was too high, and the officials were not willing to take the risk. However, he still had a question. Since that is the case, why don't the merchants hoard the goods at a low price and artificially inflate the price? They don't dare. Zhang Zhong proudly said these 4 words. The officials understood. They knew that Zhang Zhong was speaking the truth. The price could rise and fall, but hoarding and harming the market would definitely result in bankruptcy. It was fine if it was small, but once it reached a large scale, Zhang Xiaobao would definitely take action. However, if it did not reach a large scale, how would they make money? It did not matter if it was a bottom line or a red line. Whoever crossed it would die. You should earn the money you should earn, but you could not go overboard. Of course, luxury goods were an exception. If you sold luxury goods at a sky-high price, Zhang Xiaobao would also pretend not to see it. Li Longji replied. Zhang Zhong continued, "From my perspective, I can only continue to release a part of the technology and precision processing technology to allow the basic products to form more grades and thus raise the price of some of them. The rest is the responsibility of the Cultural, Sports, and Education Department." The Cultural, Sports, and Education Department was separated from the 6 departments. It overlapped with the functions of the Ministry of Rights. It was influenced but not under its jurisdiction. Its functions were naturally culture, sports, and education. It was independent but also related to other departments. The Ministry of Rights was the most important in educating the people. The officials were also managed by the Ministry of Personnel. The construction site was controlled by the Ministry of Works. If there were economic and administrative problems, the Supreme Court and the censorate would still intervene. If there was a large-scale sports competition, they would need to coordinate with the Ministry of War. When money passed through their hands, they would inevitably have to go through the Ministry of Revenue. The Cultural, Sports, and Education Department was managed by Zhang Juling. He had already changed departments many times. In the end, he volunteered to come here. He had a part-time job in the Secretariat. Otherwise, without a central department, his power would be relatively small. When he heard Zhang Zhong mention him, he picked up a pen and said, "Minister Zhang, please advise me." "I don't dare to advise you. Frankly speaking, the fall in the price of products is caused by the mass use of raw materials. The consumption of the people is too purposeful. They only buy things that they normally use. We can't say that we don't allow the people to use technology to mass produce. In fact, as long as we don't do anything, after half a year or so, the price of goods will naturally rise. The market will adjust itself. The price of basic goods will be low, and the unit labor cost of other reprocessing industries will not change. This will cause people in the planting, breeding, and textile industries to work very hard, but their income will be the same as before, or even drop, while the income of other industries will increase. Once the former lose enthusiasm, there will be at least 3 situations." Zhang Zhong flipped through the book. It was densely filled with small characters. He had learned it from his son and daughter-in-law in his daily life. In the past, he had thought that if he worked hard, he would one day learn all of his son's knowledge. In the end, the more he learned, the more complicated it became. There were set after set of formulas and book after book of theories. Even so, his son and daughter-in-law always said that their knowledge was too shallow and that there were many things they didn't understand. Zhang Zhong could only sigh at the depth of their ability and their modesty. Right now, the book had recorded the situations that would occur. He paused, and someone quickly asked, "What are the 3 situations?" "First, the smarter people will immediately change. They will plant other crops, breed other livestock, or move toward precision processing. Second, the people don't know what else to do. They have been planted before, and they are already used to it. Even though it doesn't make money, they still persevere. Third, the family needs money, but they don't have it. The more they plant and breed, the more they lose. In a panic, they commit suicide." "So," Zhang Zhong stopped here. Li Longji said, "So we can't let the price of goods rise naturally. The law of the free market can adjust the economy, but it can't save lives. We can't just look at the data to deal with the problem. Otherwise, what's the use of having you and me?" "What should I do?" Zhang Juling was still taking notes. "In the name of the court, increase the number and content of winter sports competitions, increase the prize money, and increase the number of winners," Zhang Zhong said. He continued, "Xiaobao has already made preparations to reduce the interest rate on savings. I ask your majesty and everyone to pass this resolution. The good people will interfere with the purchasing power of money. The Ministry of Works and the Agriculture Temple will release a portion of the precision processing technology for free. At the same time, the bank will provide an interest-free 3-year loan related to the technology. The interest rate of the bank's reserves will remain unchanged for the time being. This will control the annexation of the merchants and prevent them from using this opportunity to expand their private industry." The officials, including Li Longji, were all writing and drawing with their heads lowered. They were calculating whether the implementation of the various measures was in line with their expectations. After a while, everyone stopped writing. "Anything else?" Li Longji asked. "Yes, write articles in various newspapers and magazines. Write stories about the value of life, and even make up stories. Let the people cherish their current lives and don't commit suicide. Especially write about the benefits that appear in the Tang Empire. Compare it with the past and paint a better future. You persevered through so much hardship in the past. Now, you die for a little money. Isn't it not worth it? With the benefits of the imperial court, even if you don't have money, you can still eat, raise your child, and treat your illness." As Zhang Zhong spoke, he began to reminisce about the years before he had his son, Xiaobao. It was really tough. Even the clan head didn't have it easy, much less the farmers. Then, with his son, Xiaobao, everything began to change. Not only did his family change, but the world of the Tang Empire also changed. Many officials, including Li Longji, began to reminisce when they heard about the benefits. Some of them smiled as they reminisced. There was a trace of confidence, a trace of pride, and a trace of accomplishment. They even thought, Li Gue Wuqi, Shangyang, Guanzhong, Sanghangyang, you were powerful back then. If you have the ability, why don't you try it in the Tang Empire now? Your political and economic methods are simply too weak. Do you know what the production relationship between the private economy and the public economy is? Do you understand the interaction between monetary control and the GNP? Do you know what the final function of the industrial system is? I know, and it's a very simple question. I even know how the international currency exchange process works. What is the point of subduing the enemy without fighting? I can make the people I bully continue to beg me to bully them. But even so, I still have to be careful, treading on thin ice, not daring to make any mistakes. Because in the current Tang Empire, I understand that my ability is not enough to control the current economic situation of the Great Tang. It's too complicated. I can't just rely on the data to govern. I have to understand the psychology of the people of every class. What I'm considering now isn't whether the national treasury has enough money, but how to properly spend this money and raise the living standards of the people. People like you think that earning money for the national treasury is very impressive, but in my view, it's truly lamentable. Is it difficult to fill the national treasury with money? It's not difficult. If I don't consider the actual situation of the people, I can fill the national treasury. But this isn't my goal. I can't be that selfish. To me, what's difficult is to let the people of the Great Tang feel the warmth of winter, to let the elderly enjoy the rest of their lives, and to let the children smile. What politician, what economist, what strategist, what writer, all of them can stand aside. With me here, do you have the right to speak? But even so, I'm just one of the many people standing in the court. What I know are the basic qualities that all the officials present in Hanyuan Palace must have. I'm just that ordinary, but I'm also proud. I'm proud of the Great Tang Empire. If you were still here, the Great Tang Empire could wipe out all of your countries in a year. Just because I, who is stronger than you, am so ordinary in the Great Tang Empire. What's it called again? Oh, Foundation. The officials all had their own thoughts. Li Longji also went through some bitter memories, and then looked at the officials below and said, Everyone, you still have to work hard. Yongcheng, is there anything else? Zhang Zhong nodded. There is, but it's not about this matter. It's about next spring. Xiaobao and Cuckoo plan on a large-scale construction project estimated to cost 100 million strings of coins. How much? Li Longji, who had always been calm, couldn't help but cry out in surprise. The others' expressions changed again and again. 100 million strings of coins, 100 billion won. My family will pay 10 million strings of coins. Your Majesty will pay 10 million strings of coins. The National Treasury will pay 20 million strings of coins. The Great Tang Bank will pay 10 million strings of coins, and the remaining 50 million strings of coins will be raised by Xiaobao and Cuckoo, but not by my family. My family can't take out so much cash. Oh, Xiaobei and the others may pay 1 million strings of coins, but that's not included. They can pay as much as they want. There's also the group set up by our officials. The recent financial data has been good, and everyone will receive dividends during the new year. Let's set aside the 1 million strings of coins first. Zhang Zhong calmly listed out the items, all in units of 10,000 strings of coins. Wang Bei's expression was not very good. He couldn't help but cough twice and say, Brother Yongqing, as an individual, I don't object to the group paying 1 million strings of coins. But why didn't my Ministry of Revenue receive any news of such a large amount of money? Because the news was only released today, Zhang Zhong said calmly. Your Majesty. Wang Bei pretended to be indignant. Li Longji frowned. A pencil was twirling in his hand. Before it fell to the ground, it suddenly paused. He said, Minister Zhang, I want to talk to you. Wang Bei was happy, and the corners of his mouth curled up. I know you always think that Xiaobao and Cuckoo are very capable, but no matter how capable they are, raising 50 million strings of coins is difficult. Next year's budget for healthcare, education, retirement, employment, and other welfare departments should be made first. If the National Treasury still has a surplus, it can increase the investment. In addition, I see all the civil and military officials in the court. In the past, their benefits and salaries were generous, and their family property was not lacking. If there is a surplus in the group's accounts, why not use it for the people and the country? Money will depreciate if left there. Money that doesn't depreciate, as discussed today, is worrying, Li Longji said with a heavy heart. Thus, countless angry gazes converged on Wang Bei. Wang Bei realized that it was really cold. He didn't know if the humidifying and warming fans that Zhang Zhong and Wang Bei had promised would be sent back to his house after the court. Your Majesty, I impeach Zhang Zhong for not discussing with the head of the Secretariat about important matters concerning the country. Yu Wenrong's voice sounded. I second the motion. Su Yi, the Minister of Rights, spoke in agreement. Yuan Qinyao followed. I think so too. I second the motion. Another group of people impeached at the same time, including Xiao Song, the Minister of War. I also impeach Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, the Jidushi of Bohai Commander-in-Chief's office, for staying in the capital for too long. I'm afraid they have other motives. An official from the censorate took advantage of this matter to point the spearhead elsewhere. Oh? Then I want to know where you want them to go when you impeach them? Li Longji asked. I don't know. I only impeach them. The person replied. Good. I already know. Li Longji praised. I impeach Zhang Xiaobei, Wang Xiaoyuan, and the others for acting recklessly. I'm afraid they are heresy. Another official from the censorate was also unwilling to be left out. Seeing that others were impeaching them, he also spoke up. However, after he finished speaking, he realized that the situation seemed to be wrong. Why was the emperor unhappy? Previously, there was no problem with his colleagues impeaching Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. Then, he looked at Yuan Qinyao and Yu Wenrong. The two of them were from the head of the Secretariat. Seeing the two of them giving him a look, he then realized that he had impeached the wrong person. Previously, when he impeached Zhang Zhong, Zhang Xiaobao, and Wang Wan, he knew that it was because everyone had a tacit understanding. Every time there was a court meeting, they would definitely find fault with their families. It was not to say that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were really wrong, but it was a form of protection. It was not good for an official to not have any colleagues opposing him. Therefore, everyone would find fault with him. He reckoned that this time, he had chosen the wrong person in his excitement. The emperor could impeach him, and the things that should be sent would be sent to his family. Impeaching Xiao Bei was a little too much. As this person thought about it, he became very anxious and sweated profusely. Gao Lishir could not help but remind him, you said that Xiao Bei and the others are running around everywhere. What's wrong with such young children? Ah, yes, what they are doing is wrong. Your Majesty, everyone, think about it. Xiao Bei and the others are so young, and they are running around all day long. How worrying is that? Don't they think about what will happen if they are tired? What will happen if they are cold? They are really too reckless. This person was quick-witted in his hurry. Then how did they become heresy? Li Longji asked. Of course. Your Majesty, think about it. Shouldn't we be worried when they are outside? Once we are worried, we can't do good things. If we don't do good things and make the people suspicious, what is it if not heresy? After speaking, this person let out a long sigh. In just a short while, sweat had already soaked through his clothes. Li Longji nodded. Yes, that makes sense. You have worked hard. It is my duty. This person hurriedly responded. There was a 10-second period of silence in the imperial court. Just as Li Longji was about to call out names and ask about politics, Jiang Tsin of the Xinong Temple saw that no one was speaking. He opened his book and said loudly, Your Majesty, according to the temple statistics, our country's tomatoes, chili, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and other foreign crops have reached the number of crops that can be planted throughout the country. I suggest that we should give an administrative order to Your Majesty, urgent news from Yin Province, urgent news from Yin Province. Without waiting for Jiang Tsun to finish speaking, a loud shout came from the entrance of Hanyuan Palace. Luo Bin rode a wide-wheel mountain bike and appeared like the wind. The officials were not paying attention to the bike, but to what Luo Bin had shouted. What happened to Yin Province? A few seconds later, Luo Bin stopped and threw the bike to the side. He came to the table of the officials at the bottom and drank 2 mouthfuls of water. Then, he snatched the microphone and said, Your Majesty, Yin Province has reported that heavy snow has covered the sky and covered the earth. It has accumulated to the waist in half a day and has not stopped for the entire night. In the villages far away, Hugh, there are more than 1,500 people who have been blessed. Li Longji felt his heart beat faster, and he felt weak all over. The officials also had solemn expressions. In the past, when the Great Tang's technology was not advanced and there were no medical or education benefits, the lives of 1,500 people would not matter to them. Which day did people not die? Which year did people not die in disasters? Not to mention 1,500 people. Even if 15,000 people died, they would still be fine. When they fled for their lives, hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes. Countless people died on the road. They were already used to it. However, it was different now. There was no drought now, and hundreds of thousands of people did not have food to eat. It was even more impossible for people to trade their children for food. As long as people were still alive, other problems were not a problem. But suddenly, there was a place where 1,500 people lived, and the snow was up to their waists in half a day. It had been snowing for an entire day and night, and it still had not stopped. That person, bastard. Li Longji slammed the table and stood up, glaring at him angrily. Luo Bin hurriedly took 2 deep breaths and said, "Your Majesty, please forgive me. Please calm down." There were more than 1,500 people, and they were all trapped in the thick snow. However, the 10 patrol inspectors of the imperial court called last night and urgently dispatched troops to rescue them. "You." Li Longji gritted his teeth and pointed at Luo Bin. "This lowly one deserves to die. I ran too fast. Your Majesty, please calm down." Luo Bin grabbed the microphone and knelt there, not daring to raise his head. Li Longji slowly sat down, thought for a moment, and said, "What did Minister Jiang say about the administration of corn?" Replying to Your Majesty, because the people in many places are used to planting a certain crop and are not familiar with the new crop, they do not accept it. I think that an administrative order should be issued to force the local people to plant corn. Jiang Tsin glanced at Luo Bin, pretended not to see him, and answered the emperor's question, "Must an administrative order? I think that other methods can be used. For example, the newspapers can say that Xiaobao and Cuckoo support the planting of corn. How about that?" Li Longji expressed his own thoughts. "Very good. Your Majesty, please inform the 2 of them." Jiang Tsin was waiting for these words. He couldn't go to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan to discuss and ask them to come forward. Li Longji nodded, and then suddenly said, "Speaking of corn, I have specially built a cold storage for all of you this year. Before the harvest, I have stored a lot of corn ears. During the new year, each of you will be given a few hundred ears to bring home for your children to eat." "Thank you, Your Majesty." The officials didn't need to rehearse, and tacitly said their thanks in unison. As for Luo Bin, no one cared about him for the time being. It was as if they had already forgotten about the news they had just received. This lowly one. Does this lowly one also have some? Luo Bin originally wanted to ask about the disaster areas, but the moment the words left his mouth, he changed his mind. "No. Go ask Xiaobao and Cuckoo for some. In the future, say everything in one breath and then leave." Li Longji angrily glared at Luo Bin and said. Luo Bin hurriedly said, "Yes, this lowly one will take his leave." After he left, Li Longji pondered, looked at the sky, and said to the officials, "This year's snow is not small. We must make the necessary preparations." "Yes." The officials replied in unison. Regarding the matter of Kagwang County, no one mentioned it. Everyone was clear that Xiaobei's team was ranked in the Great Tang Army. Usually, the impression that the imperial guards and chamberlains of imperial insignia were ranked first, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's team was ranked second, and Xiaobei's team was ranked third. But the officials knew in their hearts that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's team was ranked first, and Xiaobei's team was ranked second. The members of Xiaobei's team needed to go to the borders of the Great Tang to kill enemies, and some even needed to follow the fleet to be considered qualified. Furthermore, everyone, including Li Longji, knew how advanced Xiaobei's team's technology was. The most advanced technology in the country would definitely be used by them first. This was a comprehensive team, and there was no lack of talents in all aspects. If Xiaobei and the others were willing, they could find a place to establish a country. The infrastructure, education, medical, military, finance, foreign affairs, research, and other departments would be able to support them immediately. With such a strong team providing disaster relief, if they still couldn't do it, they wouldn't be able to think of a solution in the imperial court. Could it be that they really had to continue sending Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's team to protect the seedlings? Even if they were sent out, there wouldn't be enough time. Li Longji thought the same, but he couldn't help but think about Xiaobei and the others. Thus, the topic of the imperial court passed very quickly. No one continued with the impeachment, and they immediately settled the matter. Seeing that the morning court was about to disperse, Luo Bin suddenly ran back and shouted, reporting to the emperor, in the area under the Bohai Commander-in-Chief's office, Regional Commander Zhang Xiaobao and Deputy Regional Commander Wang Wan are outside the hall seeking an audience. When Li Longji heard this, his eyes widened, and he couldn't help but think of what Xiaobei had said before. What are they trying to do? The officials were also stunned, and then they looked at Zhang Zhong. Zhang Zhong's eyes were filled with confusion. While Zhang Zhong was in a daze, Xiaobei and the others were in a daze. When they woke up early in the morning, the surrounding snow was piled high. From time to time, there would be people pushing snow into the distance. The snow that fell naturally was already above Xiaobei and the others' heads. The snow that was blown by the wind had piled up to more than 3 meters high. There were always people in charge of clearing the snow in the camp. After piling it up into a small pile, they would use a makeshift sleigh to move it far away. They didn't dare to pile it up near the camp, for fear that the wind would blow and bury the tent. What made Xiaobei and the others confused was not how heavy the snow was, but what they were going to do when the children, who were supposed to rest until noon, were woken up by the adults in Kagwang County. Many of the children were as confused as Xiaobei and the others when they opened their eyes. After thinking for a while, they realized that they were in the camp and not at home. From the children's rosy complexions, one could tell that they had slept very well last night. From the way they rubbed their eyes, one could tell that they hadn't slept enough. Under the watchful eyes of Xiaobei and the others, the adults in the county began to take out the 2 memorial tablets and found a high place to place them steadily. Then, they lit incense and led the children to kneel down, saying all sorts of praises. After about 2 minutes, Sun Mao took the lead and shouted loudly, "Ancestors and ancestors, I have a will in the underworld. To the heavens and to the earth, I pray for justice. Today, the people of Tang must not die in vain. Xiao Bao, Cuckoo, will live forever and be safe." The other county citizens who could speak also shouted in unison, "My heart, I wish to carry out the will of the heavens. Xiao Bao, Cuckoo, will live forever." Some of the children who couldn't speak also started to babble. Xiaobei and the others were so confused. They felt a kind of solemnity, and a kind of piety from the people in the county. Except for the children who didn't know anything, no one acted casually. Even the children were shouting words that only they knew the meaning of, and they didn't cry or make a fuss. Su Yilong and Wei Wei opened their mouths. Today, they finally felt the power of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan in the Tang Empire. It was more direct than when the whole Tang Empire came to congratulate them on their marriage. What time was it? When the people fled from the disaster, they didn't forget to bring the memorial tablets of longevity with them. The first thing they did when they woke up in the morning was to burn incense. No wonder the aristocratic families and big clans, including their own family, all bowed their heads after knowing that they had been schemed against by Zhang Xiaobao. The land that the family had saved before was gone, so they endured. In the past, only the family members could learn knowledge, and ordinary people rarely had the opportunity to go to school. But now, they endured. After some exchanges, they found that the conditions of the carriage and other conditions were no longer monopolized. Sure enough, they were all smart people. So what if they couldn't endure? Whoever made a sound would die. The Xiaobao and Cuckoo that the people were talking about only needed to shout. Su Yilong shuddered and didn't dare to think about it anymore. When more than 1,500 people stood up, Xiaobei and the others came over. Xiaobei rubbed her hands nervously. You, Aya, let's eat. Let's eat breakfast. This morning, there are 2 rice porridge, soy milk, soup, and tofu pudding. There are also buns, fried dough sticks, pies, steamed buns, fried cakes, and many side dishes. There are dozens of kinds. Everyone, wash your hands and eat. Xiaobei originally wanted to be modest and say something. After thinking about it, she realized that they were not giving her the memorial tablets of longevity. She couldn't say anything, so she could only introduce the breakfast. Xiao Yuan and the others stood at the side with an indescribable expression on their faces. Just like the people of Kagwang County who felt peace and warmth in their hearts when they saw the protection team during the heavy snow, they also felt warm in their hearts when they saw the people in the county praying for their brothers and sisters early in the morning. After the people of Kagwang County finished doing what they needed to do every morning, they began to enjoy the breakfast provided by the protection team with peace of mind. They had never regarded the protection team as outsiders, and it was impossible for them to pretend to be embarrassed. When they met Xiaobei and the others, they had to try their food. The women who were nursing their children and pregnant women also made their own requests. For example, they wanted some fruits after the main meal. If there were no fresh fruits, they would eat canned fruits so that the children's nutrition could keep up. They didn't think that they were overboard, nor did they think that such requests were unreasonable. The Tang dynasty belonged to everyone, and the children belonged to the Tang dynasty. When the children grew up healthy, they would be able to contribute to the Tang dynasty. Xiaobei, do you know? I slept very peacefully last night. It's been 2 months, and I have nightmares every night. It's useless to put the scissors under the pillow. I was fine yesterday. During the meal, a 6-year-old girl was holding a big bun and talking to Xiaobei with a happy smile on her face. Xiaobei was holding a bowl of egg cream, also known as water egg, and feeding it to a 2-year-old boy. He blew on it twice, tasted the temperature, and then stuffed it into the boy's mouth. There was no other way. Ever since the boy saw Xiaobei, he smiled and asked Xiaobei to carry him. He refused to leave Xiaobei while eating. Hearing the girl's words, Xiaobei temporarily stopped what he was doing and said, "Me too. I slept very well last night. It's all thanks to bringing you guys out. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to sleep well and would always be thinking about you. Oh, baby, don't eat salted vegetables. You'll be thirsty if you eat too much. You'll feel uncomfortable. Come and eat the braised food. It's salty in the braised food." Today's breakfast was indeed very sumptuous. It was just to show off to the people of Kagwang County, or to put it another way, he was afraid that the people of the county would be picky. The boy in Xiaobei's arms was very obedient. He ate whatever he was told to eat. He smiled after taking a bite. He smiled at everyone he saw. At this time, Sun Mao made some simple arrangements for the people of the county. He walked over with a steamed bun in one hand and a salted duck egg in the other. He said to Xiaobei and the others with a face full of gratitude, "The heavens have eyes, don't, County Magistrate Sunday. We never believe in the heavens. We only believe that as long as the imperial court doesn't give up on the people won't betray the Tang Empire." Xiaobei quickly changed his expression and spoke in a profound tone. "Sister Xiaobei, why are you different from before?" a girl asked curiously. "Because your county magistrate is an official. Of course, he has to speak in the official language. I'm not wearing official robes. Otherwise, I would say that the imperial court hasn't forgotten you guys. The people in other parts of the Tang Empire still care about you guys. Although the snow is cold, people's hearts are warm. This is the victory of our unity. This is the victory of our people." Xiaobei's expression changed again. It was more solemn and amiable. The children of the county looked at Xiaobei in a daze. They couldn't understand why there was such a big difference when the same thing was said in a different way. The girl who asked the question earlier asked tentatively, "Sister Xiaobei, is there any other way to say it?" Xiaobei nodded. "Yes. For example, in the Tang Empire's official newspaper, the title should be 'Strong Soldiers Pass Through the Border, Peace.' The wind and snow are heartless, but there are feelings." That's fun. Sister Xiaobei, you're right. With strong soldiers passing through the border, we're not afraid at all. Even if the snow is still falling and the clouds are still drifting. Still drifting? Drifting to where? Men. Xiaobei was stunned for a moment and quickly called for people. There are already people getting ready. It was difficult to judge the terrain last night. Just now, a group of 500 people is ready to set off to the next place that might be affected by the snow. A maid came forward and reported. Xiaobei blinked. Today, the snow is only falling in one place. Why are they going back and forth? Is it difficult to go and rescue them? It's difficult. It's like paddling west when facing the east. In other words, countercurrent? Xiaobei asked. The others agreed. Yes. Equip them with our most advanced equipment. This time, we'll call it countercurrent. Xiaobei raised his head and said, You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.